Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by a 𝗵𝗲𝗵𝗲 on Wattpad. Now let's start. These are the children of Deku who appeared through the time rift. While there are no official pictures or fan art available, descriptions will be provided. The oldest is Toshinori Toshi Midoriya. He is a 10-year-old boy with a quirk called gravity control, which is a combination of his mother Ochako Uraraka's and his grandmother Inko's abilities. This quirk allows him to amplify or negate the gravity of objects or people he touches, enabling him to move freely in the air, including the objects he has affected. Toshi has an average height, light brown curly hair, green eyes like his father's, and pink cheek blushes with pads on his fingers resembling his mother's. He is kind and helpful, aspiring to be a great hero like his father. Toshi feels the weight of his lineage as the firstborn son of the famous Deku, named after the great hero All Might. He strives to make his father proud, unaware that his father already holds great pride in him. He stands firm to protect his friends and family, ready to face any challenge. The second eldest is Nana Midoriya, a 9-year-old girl with the quirk precise calculation, which enables her to predict and calculate every action and move. She has long blonde wavy hair with green tips, brown glasses, and cerulean eyes. Beneath her emotionless expression and monotone voice lies a kind heart and a playful spirit. Nana is unafraid to speak her mind, especially when it comes to her siblings, and she eagerly joins in their antics. Although her quirk isn't suited for battle, she employs her intellect and martial arts skills to help her become a hero like Night Eye. The third eldest is Aoi Midoriya, also 9 years old, with a quirk called hair extension/zoom. This quirk, inherited from her mother Hatsume, has mutated due to a combination with black 𝗵𝗃, allowing her hair to extend, retract, and pick up objects, including herself, much like tentacle arms. Aoi has pink dreadlocks with green tips and golden crosshair eyes. Like her mother, she is a brilliant inventor, excited by new ideas and believing that failure does not exist. She is organized and clean, aspiring to be a pro hero while following in her mother's footsteps as an inventor. Aoi skillfully uses her hair tentacles for defense and to handle tools. The youngest is Yori Midoriya, a 7-year-old girl with the quirk Blaze Cat. Instead of inheriting her mother's BLD transformation quirk, Yori's ability mutated, allowing her to become a fire cat girl. She can shoot fireballs from her mouth and tail, and her hands can be engulfed in flames, delivering fiery punches with cat-like reflexes. Yori has messy blonde hair styled in buns, reddish-orange cat eyes, small fangs, a long yellow tail with a black scorch mark at the tip, and yellow cat ears. She is shy and self-conscious about her abilities, fearing that others may associate her with her mother's past as a villain. However, when the situation calls for bravery, she rises to the occasion. Yori dislikes water and enjoys cooked meat, and she is very affectionate towards her loved ones, especially her father. All of them possess One for All, granting them increased strength and speed, although their control is limited to 25% at adulthood. In the story, their control varies between 7% and 10% due to their age. As the morning began, Ida announced that everyone should prepare to leave the dorm and head to school at 900 hours. Since they lived on campus now, there were no excuses for being late. Kaminari, groggy from sleep, questioned how Ida could be so energetic at 6 in the morning, while Siro joined him in the kitchen, both commenting on the gloomy weather outside. Ida reminded them of their responsibilities as heroes in training, insisting on punctuality for homeroom. As the boys prepared breakfast, the rest of the class began to gather. Mina lamented the lack of a day off after their recent move, while Yaoyorozu expressed concern about the possibility of rain during orientation. Jairu suggested bringing an umbrella just in case. Tsuyu, who enjoyed the rain, received a playful jab from Uraraka about her frog-like nature. As the girls headed to the kitchen for breakfast, the boys continued their conversation. Kirishima expressed disappointment about missing outdoor exercises, while Bakugou, still irritated from a past incident involving Deku, grumbled in response. Meanwhile, Uraraka wondered where her green-haired friend was, hoping to share breakfast with him before class started. Uraraka wondered where Deku was, feeling a rush of warmth at the thought of having breakfast together. She blushed deeply, surprised by her own feelings. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 and Mina noticed her reaction. 𝗬𝗲 asked if Uraraka was feeling all right, noticing her flushed face. Uraraka quickly assured her that nothing was wrong. Mina, however, had a good idea of what was on Uraraka's mind. She whispered to Toru, suggesting that Uraraka was experiencing something special, hinting at love. Toru glanced between Mina and Uraraka, curious about who Uraraka might be waiting for. Mina surveyed the room, observing her classmates. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, Kaminari, and Kirishima were engaged in an arm wrestling match. Sada was busy teaching Todoroki and Iida how to bake cookies for their families. Shoji, Tokoyami, Ojiro, and Koda were discussing the day's class. Aoyama was enjoying a fancy meal, and Mineta was being his usual self. Mina then had a clever idea and leaned closer to Toru, instructing her to play along. She stood up and asked if anyone had seen Midoriya. Iida, realizing his friend was missing, echoed her question. He turned to Tokoyami and Mineta, inquiring if they had seen Midoriya. Tokoyami explained that he hadn't seen Midoriya because Dark Shadow had been particularly hungry that morning. Dark Shadow chimed in, apologizing for his distraction. Mineta shrugged off the concern, which earned him a playful reprimand from 𝗬𝗏. Mina nudged Toru and suggested that Uraraka should check on Midoriya. Uraraka blushed at the idea, and before she could respond, Iida offered to accompany her. She agreed, and they made their way to their friend's room. Before heading up the stairs, Iida asked Todoroki to keep an eye on the cookies, to which Todoroki nodded. In the kitchen, Sada was feeling proud as he guided Todoroki through the cookie-making process. Todoroki, contemplating a faster method, wondered if he could use his fire to bake the cookies. Sada hesitated, unsure of how hot Todoroki's flames could get. As Uraraka and Iida walked to Midoriya's room, a sudden storm rolled in, surprising them. Iida remarked on the unexpected weather, and when he noticed Uraraka seemed lost in thought, he checked on her. She snapped back to reality, explaining that living at UA was still a new experience for her. Iida smiled gently, agreeing that their recent experiences had been intense, but they had all come through it together. Uraraka recalled the time during the villain attack when Midoriya had been injured while protecting a child. Iida acknowledged Midoriya's bravery, and Uraraka chuckled at the thought of him being a great father one day. She quickly dismissed the idea, reminding herself that her focus should be on becoming a hero first. Suddenly, they heard a commotion from the kitchen, followed by a shout. Iida rushed off to handle the situation, instructing Uraraka to check on Midoriya. Uraraka continued to her destination, her thoughts lingering on the conversation they had just had. Arriving at Midoriya's door, she knocked and waited. The door opened, revealing Midoriya, who looked like he had just woken up. He greeted Uraraka with a blush, and she smiled back, asking if he had just gotten up. Midoriya admitted that he hadn't slept well due to the move. Uraraka empathized, sharing that she was still adjusting as well, and encouraged him to join her for breakfast downstairs. Great, let me finish changing and then they could head down together. His cheeks turned a bright shade of red as he realized what he had just said. He quickly clarified that he didn't mean together, but just together, you know. Uraraka smiled and acknowledged that she understood what he meant. After a few minutes of waiting, Deku was finally ready, and they both headed back to the kitchen. However, Uraraka had something on her mind that she wanted to ask. She looked towards him and inquired about his plans after he achieved his goal of becoming the greatest hero. Curiosity sparkled in her eyes. Deku thought hard. He hadn't really considered a plan for after he became the greatest hero and 𝗬𝗏 one for all. Before he could answer, a loud bolt of lightning struck the ground outside their building, causing a rip in the air. 4 figures flew out and slammed into the front door. Before long, Bakugou answered the door, having dealt with the chaos caused by icy hot almost burning down the place. He opened the door, ready to yell at whoever had the nerve to slam it, but was taken aback to see 4 kids, not older than 11, standing there. What really annoyed him was that they looked like that nerd, Deku. Before the oldest child could say anything, Bakugou exploded with frustration, demanding to know why these kids looked like him. Meanwhile, at UA, Power Loader was discussing the project with present Mike. He mentioned that even his problem child, Hatsume, was assisting him. Power Loader expressed his concerns about her tendency to cause chaos in the lab, feeling pity for whoever she ended up with. Toshinori reassured him that she was only a first year and would likely listen and follow guidance throughout her time at UA. Power Loader remained skeptical, knowing it would be a long time until graduation. 𝗫𝗠 then paused, looking out the window towards the dorms. When Toshinori expressed concern, 𝗫𝗠 smiled and suggested they pay a visit to Eraserhead's class. Eraserhead wondered why 𝗫𝗠 wanted to visit so early in the morning, but 𝗫𝗠 simply had a feeling they would see something interesting. He instructed Toshinori and Aizawa to head to Class 1A while he made a quick call. After finishing his call, 𝗫𝗠 prepared a cup of tea, anticipating an interesting day ahead. Back at the dorms, everyone was in an uproar about the recent developments. Yaoyorozu had enough and created a whistle to grab everyone's attention. She sternly asked everyone to remain calm and directed them to the seating area for discussion. As everyone settled down, the four newcomers found themselves sitting in front of the class on the couch. Yaoyorozu began by asking them to introduce themselves. The oldest boy introduced himself as Toshinori Midoria, the eldest son of the greatest hero, Deku, and mentioned that he preferred to be called Toshi. He introduced his sister, Nana, who greeted everyone with a monotone voice, and then introduced Aoi, who had a bright smile, and their youngest sister, Yori, who shyly hid behind Nana, holding her tail for comfort. Nana pointed out that their father, Izuku Midoriya, also known as Deku, was one of the world's greatest heroes. Bakugou, unable to contain his surprise, demanded to know how they knew what he was about to ask. Nana explained that her quirk allowed her to predict the question he would ask when Toshi introduced them. She then pointed to Mineta, instructing him to take 3 steps to his right. When he complied, a ceiling fan fell on top of him, causing him to groan in pain. Toshi and Yori burst into laughter, while Aoi leaned in to ask Nana if that was really necessary, trying to stifle her own laughter. Nana looked at the boy underneath the ceiling fan and remarked that it brought a smile to her face. Momo then asked how they had arrived there. Kirishima inquired why they appeared to be in middle school, while Kaminari questioned how they could claim to be siblings despite their different appearances, aside from some facial features. Toshi, not feeling up to explaining, indicated that Nana would handle it, and his sisters nodded in agreement. Nana explained that they were from 20 years in the future, having ended up there during a family outing with their father, mothers, and oldest sister. Mina interrupted with a big smile, surprised to hear about multiple mothers. Midoriya blushed at the revelation of having more than one wife, while Uraraka listened with hope. Nana continued, stating that they had been caught in the crossfire of a villain attack involving a time quirk, which sent them back to the past. Todoroki noted their calmness given the situation. Aoi mentioned that Nana often said they lived in a world full of random possibilities, suggesting that something like this was bound to happen. Yori added that their father always said they would be fine as long as they stuck together. Midoriya agreed, but before he could elaborate, Mina expressed her curiosity about who their mother was. Toshi smiled and revealed his padded fingertips, inviting them to guess. Mina squealed in recognition and turned to Ochako and Midoriya, excitedly declaring that she knew they would end up together and now had a child. Both Izuku and Ochako exchanged glances, looking away as Midoriya became flustered, causing Ochako to accidentally activate her quirk and float to the ceiling. Jairu offered to help pull her down, while Aoi extended one of her dreadlocks to assist. Ida, observing the scene, asked about Aoi's interesting quirk. Aoi proudly declared herself the daughter of the world's greatest genius inventor, Hatsume. Nana chimed in, mentioning that her mother was also Melissa Shield. Mineta, with a dark aura around him, expressed his envy over Midoriya's future HRM of appealing women, but Toshi intervened, using his quirk to keep Mineta on the ground and asking him not to speak about their mothers that way. Kirishima pointed out that while they had mentioned 3 mothers, Yori still needed to reveal hers. Toru, with what appeared to be puppy dog eyes, urged Yori to share. Yori panicked internally, worried that revealing her mother's identity would lead to assumptions about her future. She knew that no one was born a villain. Her mother, Himiko Toga, had become one due to her quirk, which required BLD to transform into others and had driven her to madness. As Yori struggled with her thoughts, Nana intervened, asking how long they had been in the dorms. When Midoriya replied that they had just moved in the day before, Nana considered the implications for Yori's situation. She decided they couldn't reveal Yori's mother just yet until everyone fully understood. Nana informed them that their teachers, principal, and a guest would be arriving soon. Ida questioned how she knew this, to which Nana replied that she had predicted it with her quirk. She also mentioned that they needed to explain what had happened in the kitchen, prompting both Satu and Todoroki to glance toward it. Midoriya, curious about their quirks, pretended to write in a notebook, eager to learn more. Toshi assured him that they would share their quirks in due time, expressing excitement. Just then, Nana announced that their guests had arrived as 𝗓𝗏 and Eraserhead entered the room. Eraserhead surveyed the kitchen, which was covered in burn marks, then looked at his class and the 4 children who resembled his problem child. He pinched his nose and sighed, asking for an explanation. Aizawa, visibly irritated, demanded to know why the kitchen looked like it had been through a war zone and why there were 4 children present. 𝗓𝗏 was curious, not about the kitchen, but about the 4 children who resembled his successor, feeling an inexplicable connection to them. Satu explained that he had been helping Ida and Todoroki make cookies, but then Ida and Uraraka went upstairs to check on Midoriya, leaving Todoroki to use his fire to assist with the baking. Aizawa looked at Todoroki and questioned his choice to use fire for baking cookies. Todoroki replied that he wanted to finish quickly so he could take them to his mother after school. Aizawa rubbed his temples and sighed, announcing that Satu and Todoroki would be responsible for cleaning the kitchen and would be banned from baking for the rest of the week. They both acknowledged their punishment, while Kaminari lamented the loss of cake and cookies. Turning to Midoriya, 𝗓𝗏 asked him to introduce the 4 children. Midoriya hesitated before revealing that they were his children from the future. Aoi pointed at 𝗓𝗏 and declared that he was their granddad, prompting shocked reactions from everyone, including Midoriya and 𝗓𝗏, who was taken aback and nearly lost his composure. Todoroki proclaimed that he had suspected this all along, but Aizawa quickly silenced the room with his quirk, muttering about his longing for a normal class. Midoriya looked at his children and asked if there was anything else they wanted to share. Nana suggested revealing their hero rankings or who they ended up with in the future. Mina eagerly opted for the latter, while Bakugou insisted on knowing his hero ranking, demanding nothing less than number 1. Tsu reminded everyone that Midoriya was considered the greatest hero, which only fueled Bakugou's frustration. Aizawa instructed Midoriya and his children to follow him to Recovery Girl's office while the rest of the class headed to orientation and then to class, assigning Ida and Yaoyorozu to take charge in their absence. Midoriya bid farewell to his classmates as he followed his teachers. Aoi waved goodbye and asked her brother Toshi if they might see their mother that day. Toshi was uncertain but waved to everyone, including Uraraka, who responded with a shy wave and a blush upon realizing her connection to Midoriya's future family. Yori bowed politely as she followed her siblings out. Nana turned back at the door, acknowledging that everyone had many questions, promising they would answer them upon their return. She then addressed Bakugou, warning him not to start anything just because he learned that their father was the greatest hero. Bakugou approached her, but before he could respond, he stumbled as he realized someone had tied his shoelaces together. Nana smiled slightly and remarked that if he didn't accept that their father had surpassed him long ago, he would fall harder than that. With a bow, she left the dorm. Kirishima helped Bakugou to his feet, asking if he was all right. Bakugou expressed his frustration as he fixed his shoelaces and retreated to his room to prepare. Ojiro marveled at the idea of people from the future being present, while Toru shared in the excitement. Mina recalled how adorable Midoriya's children were, especially Yori with her cute cat ears and tail. Ida took pride in Midoriya's accomplishments as one of the greatest heroes, while Shiro pointed out that Midoriya had also become quite popular. Kaminari was astonished that their class's cinnamon roll had 4 wives and 4 children. Todoroki corrected him, stating that Midoriya actually had 5 children, mentioning an older sister. Kaminari wondered why they hadn't mentioned her or Yori's mother. Ida advised against prying into their family lives, though he too was curious. He turned to Uraraka, asking how she was holding up. Uraraka struggled to process the morning's events. Children from the future had appeared, revealing themselves as Deku's offspring, and one of them was her child. She was thrilled about her future with Deku but confused about being part of 𝐻𝗄𝗏. Turning to Ida, she admitted her uncertainty. Tsu suggested that it was a lot for Uraraka to take in, especially having a child with her crush and being part of 𝐻𝗄𝗏. Uraraka was taken aback by Tsu's comment, blushing as she processed the implications. 𝐒𝐻𝐢 chimed in, affirming that everyone knew about her crush on Midoriya, explaining that she could hear Uraraka's heartbeat quicken whenever he was near. Right after they split off at the mall, Mina, Momo, and Uraraka noticed how Midoriya had run away with a huge blush on his face, leading them to put 2 and 2 together. Uraraka sat down on the couch, her head in her hands, realizing how deep her feelings were. She expressed to herself that she didn't want to interfere with their goals of becoming heroes. Midoriya aimed to be a great hero, while she needed to earn money for her family, leaving no room for romance. Tears welled in her eyes as she shared her concerns. Momo looked at her and reassured her that it was very considerate of her to think that way, but reminded her that they still had plenty of time to be heroes since they were only in their first year. She pointed out that the future seemed to work out well for Midoriya, who became a great hero, and they even started a family together. Uraraka questioned if that was really true, to which Momo replied that given what had happened and who they had met that morning, she believed it was likely. Uraraka then pondered whether she should go directly to Midoriya and confess her feelings, which caught Mina's attention. Mina rushed over, advising against rushing her confession. She explained that it might be confusing for Midoriya as well, suggesting that Uraraka should give it some time. 𝗓𝗏 expressed surprise at Mina's advice, expecting her to encourage a grand gesture instead. Mina playfully pouted, denying she was a hardcore romantic. Ida then suggested they get ready for orientation, prompting everyone to head back to their rooms with groans. Todoroki inquired about Ida's mood, and Ida responded that it had been a long morning, with another one ahead. When Todoroki asked what he meant, Ida mentioned another encounter with Hatsume, recalling her intense gaze during the sports festival. Todoroki reassured him that perhaps Midoriya had calmed her down in the future, teaching his children about dignity and honor, and urged Ida to get ready. Meanwhile, outside on the UA campus, Aizawa finished a call and informed the group that he would leave them in All Might's care while he attended to some paperwork. As he departed, Toshi remarked on how cool the campus always felt, prompting Midoriya to ask if they had been there before. His son explained that their oldest sister attended UA in her hero course, and they visited her occasionally. Midoriya was surprised to learn he had another child, questioning who she was and who her mother was. Aoi playfully stated that it was classified information for now, mentioning that 2 of their mothers were teachers at UA in the future. All Might inquired about their mothers, and Toshi pointed to himself, revealing that his mother was Ochako Uraraka. All Might expressed that he had expected this, which caused Midoriya to blush and question what he meant. All Might pointed out that it was obvious Midoriya had feelings for Uraraka, leading Midoriya to groan, realizing how blind he had been to his own emotions. Aoi then introduced her mother as Mei Hatsume, prompting All Might to recall her from the sports festival. Midoriya noted that Aoi seemed different from her mother, less in your face. Aoi explained that while her mother liked to show off her inventions, she preferred testing her creations and was more organized. Curious, Midoriya asked if Aoi had made any support items. Aoi excitedly directed Nana to show them. Nana activated the bracelets on her arms, which transformed and surrounded her arms, covering her hands in flexible metal. All Might noted their resemblance to Melissa's gauntlets but observed they appeared more powerful. Aoi explained the features she had added, including a grabbing hook and a scanner. Nana humorously pointed out that despite all the cool features, they couldn't tell time. Midoriya praised Aoi's work, and she smiled, appreciating the compliment. All Might then asked Nana about her mother, not prepared for the answer. When she revealed that her mother was Melissa's shield, All Might was taken aback, spitting out BLD in surprise. Nana expressed concern for his health, reaching into her purse for something. Midoriya, worried about All Might, asked if he was okay. All Might reassured him that he was fine but urged Midoriya to treat Melissa well. Nana then handed All Might a strange gummy, explaining that it had been developed in the future to restore internal organs and strength. All Might thanked her and tried the gummy, which tasted like cherry, while Nana advised him to stick to light meals afterward. All Might expressed his gratitude, feeling the effects of the gummy kicking in. Yori, growing drowsy, reassured him that he wasn't that old. Toshi noted that it was time for Yori's cat nap. Yori then asked Midoriya if he could carry her on his back, claiming he gave the most comfortable rides. Midoriya obliged, bending down to let her climb on, and as she fell asleep on his shoulder, he marveled at how warm she felt. Nana informed them that while the gummy was strong, it wasn't enough to restore One for All, but they could use their enhanced abilities as a party trick. All Might was taken aback, questioning how they knew about One for All, a secret known worldwide. Nana revealed that they all knew and suggested showing them. All Might and Midoriya watched in awe as each child activated the quirk, each displaying different colors. Midoriya even noticed Yori activating it in her sleep, with red energy lines appearing. Toshi had green energy lines, Nana had blue, and Aoi had yellow. The display lasted a minute before they all deactivated their quirks, including Yori, who somehow managed to do so in her sleep. Midoriya was amazed as he observed his children activating and deactivating their quirks. Nana explained that their control varied between 7% and 10%, but it was still strong enough. All Might, curious about how they knew about the quirk, listened intently as Toshi shared that he had begun having strange dreams about 7 unknown individuals when he turned 4. Nana continued, explaining that her quirk was active from 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. When her parents were deciding on her name, she instinctively said, Nana, having heard a woman's voice say it, surprising her parents as it was her first word. Aoi added that when she turned 4, she began having visions of a tall man in a business suit with white hair, prompting her to ask her siblings if they had similar visions. Nana recounted how, when Yori turned 4, they played outside to test her new quirk. While playing tag, they noticed strange lines covering their bodies and realized they were moving much faster than usual. When Toshi jumped, he soared high into the sky, prompting their father to come outside and inquire about what happened. They shared everything with him, and he explained the situation to them. All Might concluded that instead of One for All passing from individual to individual, it had spread to all 4 of them. Toshi remarked that it felt cool to be closer to their parents and expressed their longing to become heroes like them. Nana and Aoi echoed his sentiment, and Midoriya felt tears welling in his eyes at their aspirations. Toshi, noticing his father's emotional state, reassured him not to cry, as it would make him cry too. Aoi chimed in, saying she would also start crying if Toshi did. All Might observed the Midoriya family with a smile, commenting on the genetic connection. Nana then pointed out that their grandmother was approaching with Principal Nezu. Inko, concerned, asked Izuku what had happened and why she was called to the school, noticing one child on his back. Izuku sheepishly explained that these were his children from the future, making them her grandchildren. Inko's worried expression shifted to shock as she looked at the children, who waved at her with smiles reminiscent of her sons. She noticed the one with cat ears yawning and rubbing her crimson eyes, greeting her before falling back asleep. Inko's joy erupted as she exclaimed that she had grandbabies. All Might attempted to calm her down, while Inko expressed her happiness that Izuku had found someone and started a family. She eagerly inquired about the mothers of his children, asking if it was Ochako or Hatsume. Aoi clarified that they had multiple mothers, which caused Inko to worry that her son had become a womanizer in the future. Izuku, panicking, reassured his mother that it wasn't like that. Nana confirmed that their father was happily married to all 4 mothers. Principal Nezu approached, recognizing the children from earlier that morning. Nana greeted him with enthusiasm, picking him up playfully, which caused All Might and nearby teachers to flinch. Nezu chuckled, acknowledging the time travel humor as Nana placed him back on her shoulders. He complimented her strength, expressing admiration. All Might inquired if everything was all right. 𝗫𝗳 informed them that they needed to visit Recovery Girl's office for a quick checkup before they could join the rest of the class later that day. Toshi was thrilled at the prospect of staying on UA campus and joining Class 1A, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Aoi shared his enthusiasm, eagerly anticipating building gadgets with her mother. Nana reminded them that their stay was temporary, as they still needed to find a way back to their own time. 𝗫𝗳 mentioned that he had contacted Power Loader and 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿, sharing that Hatsume would be joining the hero class that day, while Melissa would arrive the following day. All Might was taken aback, questioning how 𝗫𝗳 knew whom to call. 𝗫𝗳 reassured them that having an inventor would be beneficial for their situation. Nana expressed her joy at the thought of seeing her mother again, while Midoriya wondered why his mother was there. He didn't mind her presence but was curious about the reason for her visit. 𝗫𝗳 explained that she would be interested in meeting her new grandchildren and would stay in the teaching housing to help look after them, to which Inko nodded in agreement. Aoi was excited about seeing her grandmother every day, declaring it the best news. As they approached Recovery Girl's office, All Might knocked on the door. Recovery Girl asked who was there, and All Might identified himself and Midoriya. She opened the door, surprised to see them along with a chubby woman resembling Midoriya, several children who also looked like him, and 𝗫𝗳 perched on one of the children's shoulders. A headache was already forming for her as she expressed her annoyance at the unexpected gathering. Meanwhile, in Class 1A, Aizawa entered with his usual dull expression, giving the students 5 seconds to prepare. He announced that they would be meeting at Ground Beta for a viewing. Ida raised his hand, asking if they would be observing a pro-hero. Aizawa clarified that they would be watching the Midoriya children in a mock entrance exam to gauge their abilities. If they outperformed most of the class, the students would have to train harder. If not, they would help prepare the children for their future exam. Mina expressed concern about the children's age for such an exam, while Ojiro noted that they were Midoriya's kids and must have trained before arriving. Kirishima remarked on Midoriya's intense training regimen, suggesting that he had a hand in their preparation. Ida confirmed that they went on morning jogs during their off days. Yaoyorozu raised a question about whether Midoriya and his kids were all right with this plan. Aizawa revealed that it was the children's idea to assist with the upcoming provisional license exam, surprising the class. They had expressed a longing to prove their worth through the mock entrance exam. Kaminari acknowledged their training despite their young age, while Shoto expressed curiosity about the younger Midoriya's abilities. Tokoyami noted that this could provide them with new techniques for the licensing exam. Aizawa confirmed their insights. Bakugou scoffed at the idea of Midoriya's children beating his score, but Shiro pointed out their confidence in suggesting the challenge, earning a glare from Bakugou. Shoji raised his hand to ask if there was anything else. Aizawa mentioned that after the mock exam and lunch, they would have the option to face off against the 4 children, eliciting a mix of concern, curiosity, and excitement from the class. Back in the nurse's office, Recovery Girl remarked on the interesting morning they had experienced. She instructed Yori to open her mouth and say, "ah," while examining her teeth with a tongue depressor. Yori complied, revealing her cat-like fangs. Recovery Girl concluded that they all seemed to be in excellent shape, checking off her clipboard and handing Yori a lollipop as a reward. Not to mention Toshinori, that Gummy is already doing wonders. She believed his stomach and lungs would be back to normal before the licensing exam. She said this to Nana, who replied with a simple acknowledgement as she sat next to her father. Midoriya expressed his concern, asking his daughter if it was really a good idea for them to take a mock entrance exam. Nana reassured him, stating that he shouldn't worry about them. They would be fine, especially since he had helped them train their quirks. Midoriya, recalling his own entrance exam, still felt uneasy. Aoi chimed in, assuring her father that they had good control over their quirks and promised not to break any bones in the process, winking playfully at him. Midoriya chuckled, reminding them that they didn't want to end up back in Recovery Girl's care, who would surely give them an earful. However, if they were determined to proceed, he insisted they tell him about their quirks. Nana confidently shared that her quirk was precise calculations, allowing her to predict and calculate every action and move. Midoriya was impressed, noting how it reminded him of Sir Nitai's quirk, which made Nana smile at the comparison. All Might, on the other hand, flinched at the mention of Night Eye, a reaction that Inko noticed. Toshi then explained that his quirk was a combination of his mother's and grandmother's abilities. He demonstrated by using it on a chair and himself, revealing that he could manipulate gravity, allowing him to float around the room. He added that if he used it for too long, he would feel nauseous, just like his mother. Midoriya was amazed, likening it to an advanced form of telekinesis. Toshi continued, mentioning that he and Nana had been taking martial arts classes to improve their close-quarters combat skills, showcasing some impressive kicks and chops. All Might praised their initiative, emphasizing the importance of learning different fighting styles in case they encountered a villain up close. Aoi then shared that she had a dual quirk, combining her mother's quirk of Zoom, which she primarily used to build support gear, with her other quirk called hair extensions. She demonstrated by using her hair to lift a chair from across the room, explaining that her dreadlocks were strong and durable, capable of lifting objects and even herself. Midoriya noted how versatile her quirk was, suitable for both rescue and combat. Inko pointed out that with so much hair, it must take a while to keep it from getting tangled. Aoi sighed, mentioning that she usually asked her mother for help, but since her mother was often busy, she relied on her other big sister or Nana instead. Inko offered to help her with her hair, to which Aoi gratefully responded with a hug, causing Inko to smile warmly. Midoriya expressed confusion about where the extension part of Aoi's quirk came from, noting that neither he nor Mei possessed that ability. The kids exchanged knowing glances, thinking to themselves that it was only a matter of time. Yori then spoke up, enjoying her lollipop as she shared that her quirk was called Blaze Cat. She explained that she inherited cat features from her mother, which had mutated to give her a tail, cat ears, cat eyes, and enhanced reflexes. Taking a deep breath, she demonstrated her blaze ability, igniting fire around her wrists, tail, and ankles, even forming a small cat bell made of fire around her neck. The adults, including Izuku, Inko, Recovery Girl, Nezu, and All Might, were amazed by the transformation. Yori's shy demeanor shifted to one of confidence as she continued explaining her powers. She could shoot fireballs from her mouth and the tip of her tail, delivering blazing kicks and fiery punches. As her flames subsided, she realized she had burned parts of her clothes and left marks on the floor, quickly apologizing to Recovery Girl and Nezu. Inko whispered to her son that Yori's fire quirk must come from his side of the family. Nezu reassured Yori that it was no problem, mentioning that they would be changing into UA training uniforms before the mock exam. He handed each of them a blue uniform with white stripes, explaining that they had been updated to withstand heat after the recent sports festival. Toshi exclaimed how cool the uniforms were, and Nezu instructed them to head back to class to prepare for their mock exam and battle trial. They all agreed and made their way to Class 1. Aoi playfully declared that the last ones there would be a rotten egg as she dashed ahead, prompting Toshi to chase after her, asking if she even knew where she was going. Midoriya watched them go, reminding them to be careful. Nezu expressed hope that they would enjoy their time at UA, while Recovery Girl sighed, preparing the beds and medkits just in case they needed them. Midoriya, those kids are a lot like your son, All Might remarked as he and Inko walked out of the room toward ground beta. Inko, following closely behind, asked him to call her by her name and inquired about his comment. All Might explained that the children shared the same passion and drive to become heroes as young Midoriya did, noting the determination in their eyes that reminded him of when he first met Izuku. Inko expressed her concern for the kids, worried about the challenges they would face. All Might reassured her that Midoriya would keep them safe and guide them on the right path. Inko then posed a question about a hero named Sir Night Eye, recalling how All Might had flinched at the mention of his name. All Might's expression turned somber as he acknowledged that it was a long story. Meanwhile, Power Loader called out to his student, Hatsume, trying to get her attention while she focused intently on one of her gadgets. After several attempts, he finally caught her attention. She quickly responded, explaining that she was busy fixing her jetpack from the sports festival. Power Loader informed her that Principal Nezu had arranged for her to join Class 1A for hero training that day. Hatsume's eyes lit up with excitement as she rushed around the room, gathering her inventions. She eagerly anticipated the chance to showcase her creations to the class, dreaming of the day when her gadgets would be used by pro heroes. In Class 1A, Aoi burst through the door, triumphantly announcing that she had found what she was looking for. The class turned to her, noticing that she was dressed in their PE uniform. Toshi, who had been chasing after her in the same outfit, questioned whether she was sure this time, recalling her previous claims. Deku, observing the similarities between Aoi and Hatsume, commented on how they could have arrived faster if Aoi had let him lead the way. Aizawa greeted them as they entered the room, standing at the front while Izuku took his seat behind Bakugou. He informed the class about the day's activities, stating that he had already explained everything. Nana raised her hand, seeking clarification on whether they could use support gear during their mock exam and if their scores would carry over when they were ready to attend UA. Nedzu entered with all might just as she finished her questions. He confirmed that they could use any support gear they had built themselves, but their scores would not transfer to future entrance exams. Toshi expressed concern about fairness, and Aoi and Yori nodded in agreement. Shoji asked if they were truly prepared for the challenge, recalling the difficulty of the test. They confidently affirmed that they were ready. Nedzu then instructed them to follow him to the bus that would take them to Ground Beta for their exam. As they left, Deku told them to be safe, and Aoi reassured him that they would be all right. Outside in the parking lot, Yori asked Nedzu who would be driving them to the mock exam. Nedzu cheerfully revealed that he would be the one driving, spinning the keys on his paw before climbing aboard the bus and starting it up. He instructed everyone to fasten their seatbelts. Toshi silently hoped for a normal bus ride, but Nana quipped that with Nedzu at the helm, that was unlikely. In the viewing room, everyone gathered around the screens to observe what the Midoriya children were capable of, though two were missing from the group. Outside the room, Ochako asked Izuku if they could speak privately, and he agreed. Nervously, Izuku inquired if her question was about Toshi being their son, to which she nodded. Ochako reminded him of their earlier conversation about starting a family, and Izuku listened attentively, understanding the significance of their discussion. The truth was that she wanted to start a family with him. Tears formed in her eyes as she looked at him, and he was taken aback by her emotion. Izuku felt a wave of concern wash over him as he asked if he had done something wrong. She shook her head, closing her eyes for a moment before confessing her feelings. She loved him, and these feelings had grown after her time with Aoyama. She had hesitated to share them, not wanting to distract him from his goal of becoming the greatest hero or from her own goal of supporting her parents. As she spoke, her voice trembled, and she began to weep softly. In that moment, Izuku wrapped his arms around her, offering comfort. He reassured her that she was never a distraction. He recalled how she had supported him during the entrance exam, keeping him from falling. Looking into her chocolate brown eyes, he admitted his love for her, expressing regret for not telling her sooner. He had feared it might ruin their friendship and was unsure if she felt the same way. Uraraka hugged him back, affirming her feelings for him and promising to always be there for him. They shared a tender moment, leaning their heads together until they were interrupted by Ida, who stepped into the hallway. He informed them that their children had arrived at the test site and urged them to return inside. He glanced between them, questioning if he had interrupted something. They both quickly assured him that nothing was wrong as they separated but remained close. Ida led them back inside, and Uraraka turned to Izuku, asking if this meant they were now a couple or something more. He suggested they take things slow and mentioned they still needed to explain their relationship to Melissa and Hatsume. He realized he had called her by her first name and apologized, but she reassured him that it was fine as long as she could call him by his first name too. Excitedly, she pulled him into the viewing room to watch their children. Kirishima waved at them, announcing that their kids had just reached the gate. Kaminari pointed out that Toshi looked unwell, his face green as he held his stomach. Toshi then rushed to a bush, and it seemed he was not feeling well at all. Tsuyu wondered what had happened on the bus ride, while Aizawa sighed, recalling how Nedzu's driving could be a bit chaotic. Mina noticed Uraraka and Midoriya holding hands and smiled, confirming that they had finally confessed their feelings for each other. The rest of the group stared at the two, and Ida congratulated them, expressing his happiness but reminding them not to let their new relationship distract them from their studies. All Might and 𝐈𝐧𝐭 observed the scene as 𝗵𝗔 entered, calling for everyone's attention. He announced that the Midoriya children's test was about to begin and instructed everyone to pay attention. The Midoriya children prepared themselves, stretching and getting ready for the challenge ahead. Nana checked on Toshi, who still looked a bit nauseous. He reassured her that he was fine, just recovering from the principal's wild driving. With no rescue points available, 𝐴𝐽 suggested they could go all out. Toshi proposed a friendly competition. Whoever scored the least would help 𝐴𝐽's mom clean her workshop when they returned. 𝐴𝐽 eagerly accepted, and Nana joined in, sealing the deal with a fist bump. Yori, in her blaze cat form, also agreed. As they activated One for All, Toshi floated into the air, while 𝐴𝐽 lifted herself off the ground with her hair. Nana got into a runner stance, and Yori prepared to spring into action. With a shared determination, they set off, splitting up at an intersection. Nana and Yori dashed in opposite directions, 𝐴𝐽 scaled the buildings, and Toshi hovered in place, deciding where to go next. Finally, Toshi chose a path and floated away, ready to face the challenges ahead. Personally, he preferred the air as he soared above the buildings. Utilizing his father's finger flick technique to propel himself, he spotted 4 one-pointers, 3 two-pointers, and 1 large 3-pointer robot below him. It was showtime as he turned away from them. He pointed his fingers toward the sky, holding 4 fingers with his thumb in both hands, and charged One for All in his fingers for a powerful air blast. With determination, he launched himself toward the robots at high speed. In the viewing room, everyone watched in awe as Toshi moved swiftly through the air. Momo commented on his impressive use of his quirk to float and then propel himself with air blasts. Ojiro noted that this was the result of combining the quirks of Midoriya and Uraraka. Kaminari marveled at Toshi's control over his quirk at such a young age, recalling his own struggles with his electrification quirk. Bakugou thought to himself that Toshi was copying him as he observed the boy using air flicks to navigate the sky. Kirishima pointed out that Toshi was heading straight for the robots, prompting both Uraraka and Midoriya to call out to him. Toshi launched himself at the robots, aiming for one of the one-pointers. He turned in mid-air and delivered a powerful kick, shattering the robot into pieces. The remaining robots prepared to engage him, declaring their attack mode. Toshi realized he needed more ammunition and gathered the debris from the destroyed robot, which began to spin around him like a miniature asteroid belt. He challenged the 2 one-pointers as they charged at him, sending the broken pieces flying at them with great force, destroying them instantly. He dashed toward the new debris to add to his collection. 2 of the 2-pointers attempted to strike him with their tail-like appendages while the 3-pointer launched non-lethal missiles at him. Toshi skillfully dodged the tails and blocked the missiles with the floating robot parts. In the viewing room, 𝗵𝗔 praised Toshi's skillful tactics, noting how he smashed one robot to use as ammunition against the others. 𝐈𝐧𝐭 agreed, highlighting Toshi's ability to block incoming missiles while evading attacks. Uraraka admired the asteroid belt Toshi had created, wishing her quirk could do something similar. Iida asked Midoriya to share details about his children's quirks, sparking curiosity among everyone. Back with Toshi, he acknowledged that his big sister was right about the robots being formidable as he continued to evade their attacks. He managed to climb onto the back of one of the 2-pointers, amplifying its gravity until it could no longer move. He checked for any signs of fatigue, realizing he had taken down 4 robots, leaving only 2 remaining. The remaining robots announced their combination mode as they moved closer together, merging into a larger, more intimidating robot with a big red eye locked onto him. Toshi felt a mix of surprise and determination as he kicked the grounded 2-pointer to create more ammunition. In the viewing room, 𝗧𝗏 expressed confusion about the robot's ability to fuse, while 𝗵𝗔 explained that they had this capability under certain circumstances, such as when a single individual destroyed a group of them. Bakugou, irritated, questioned why Toshi was treated differently, recalling his own experiences with the robots. 𝐈𝐧𝐭 had to intervene, wrapping Bakugou in his capture weapon to quiet him down. 𝗵𝗔 clarified that the protocol was triggered by the destruction of the robots before they could activate their fusion ability. 𝐈𝐧𝐭 admitted he had forgotten about this function, noting that many candidates never witnessed it due to the swift nature of the exams. Back with Toshi, the newly formed robot charged at him, preparing to strike. Toshi dodged the incoming punch, which hit the ground with a loud thud. He attempted to hop onto its back to amplify its gravity, but the robot's tail swatted him away. Realizing the robot was adapting to his tactics, he focused on avoiding its attacks. As the robot aimed its rockets at him, Toshi dodged the missiles and used floating debris to intercept them. With a spark of inspiration, he gathered rubble from the destruction around him, preparing for his final attack. He moved closer to the robot, causing it to strike at him, but it missed, creating more debris. Toshi continued to evade the attacks while collecting more rubble in the air, stepping back to create distance for his decisive move. Soon, the robot was surrounded by debris from the ground and the remnants of the other destroyed robots. Toshi put his finger pads together and deactivated his quirk while shouting "Meteor Shower," which completely destroyed the robot. In the viewing room, Midoriya noted that Toshi had used the same strategy as Ochako when she fought Kaken, adding more notes to his notebook, which earned him some curious looks since no one had seen him with it before. Momo observed that even though Nana seemed to be the most intelligent of the four, Toshi was smart as well, able to adapt to different scenarios and think on the fly. Realizing her wording, she quickly added that she didn't mean to imply that the others weren't intelligent. Ochako, watching her son perform the move with admiration, assured her that none was taken. Satu remarked that Toshi still had enough energy to keep going, while Tokoyami noted that he must have trained his stamina for big attacks like that. Hagakure pointed out that Toshi was gathering all the debris, floating the rubble up and swirling it around him. J.I.R.A commented that he looked like a mini-planet in the air, and Midoriya added that Toshi must love space just as much as his mother did, sharing a smile with Ochako. 𝗫𝗓 then suggested they check on the other Midoriyas by flipping the camera channels. Nana Midoriya's quirk, precise calculation, allowed her to calculate and predict every action and move. She was running down the street she had chosen after splitting up from her siblings, swiftly taking down one-pointers with her gauntlets before they even registered her presence. Observing Toshi flying above the skyline, she acknowledged that she needed some mobility to come out on top. Cracking her knuckles, she faced a one-pointer charging towards her, dodging its fist just in time to deliver a counterattack. With a strong punch, she struck the robot, ensuring she didn't damage it too badly. She examined the wiring and adjusted it, gaining full control of its monitor functions and weaponry. Nana climbed onto the back of the robot and connected the wires to start it up. Excitedly, she declared it was time to ride. In the viewing room, 𝗫𝗓 praised her cleverness while Iida questioned if that was allowed. 𝗫𝗓 reminded him that anything went as long as it wasn't villainous during the exam. Iida expressed concern about the danger of riding on the robot, but 𝗫𝗓 noted that she was having fun, so why ruin it? Aizawa thought about how to manage the problem child's antics. In the exam area, Nana enjoyed riding the robot while taking down others, though her expression remained neutral. She mentally counted her victories: 4 3-pointers, 3 2-pointers, and 6 1-pointers. Noticing the robot's battery was dying and a horde of robots closing in, she sighed and noted her count had increased to 7 1-pointers before she jumped off and smashed it with her gauntlet, lamenting the end of her joy ride. Surrounded by robots, she cracked her knuckles and took a boxing stance, ready for combat. As one rushed her, she charged up one for all in her fist and destroyed it, creating a gust of wind that pushed back the others. 2 more robots attacked from her sides, but she leaped at the last moment, causing them to collide and destroy each other. Landing on another robot approaching from behind, she covered its red eye and directed it towards a group of robots. As she jumped off, the robot crashed into the others, resulting in a massive explosion behind her. Emerging from the smoke, a small rocket was fired directly at her, but she caught it with her gauntlet and sent it back to the one who launched it, declaring it returned to sender as she prepared to face the remaining robots. In the viewing room, J.I.R.A praised Nana's bravery as they watched her take on the horde of robots. Mina and Toru cheered for her, while Kirishima declared her actions the definition of pure manliness, placing a fist over his heart with a tear in his eye, earning him curious looks from Siro and Kaminari. Midoriya decided he needed to ask 𝗫𝗠 for a recording of this to show Melissa when she arrived. 𝗫𝗠 reassured him that the cameras had been recording since the start of the exam. Meanwhile, Power Loader entered the studio to check the inventory and restock supplies, sensing something was off. Noticing the absence of smoke and explosions, he wondered where Hatsume was. He found a note with grease stains that read she had gone to C Class 1A a bit early to show off her inventions and would be back later. Sighing, Power Loader pocketed the note. He felt a mix of happiness and concern as she ventured off on her own, but he decided not to let the moment go to waste. After locking the studio doors, he headed to the teacher's lounge for a cup of coffee. Meanwhile, Hatsume zoomed through the hallways of UA using her repair jetpack, making her way to the viewing room where Class 1A was gathered with a case full of her new inventions to test. Just before crashing into the door, she turned off her jetpack. Upon entering, she noticed everyone was focused on screens displaying 4 students battling against exam robots. One student in particular caught her attention, a girl with pink dreadlocks and green-tipped hair, whose yellow eyes had cross patterns. Hatsume gasped, drawing the attention of those around her. Midoriya tried to explain the situation, but Hatsume interrupted him with excitement, calling out joyfully about her creation. This chapter took some time to come together, and the author hoped it would satisfy those who had been waiting. The intention was to give Hatsume a deeper motivation for wanting to create support items for heroes. Aoi Midoriya possessed a quirk called hair extension /zoom, similar to her mother's, but a mutation from Black WHP allowed her hair to extend, retract, and lift objects, including herself, making it strong and durable. 10 years ago, on a playground filled with children pretending to be heroes, a little girl with pink dreadlocks and yellow crosshair eyes sat at a table, tinkering with a toy robot she had received for her birthday. She connected wires and adjusted circuits, hoping to make the robot walk and talk without a remote. Another girl, with round glasses and cyan blue hair, looked up from her book and admired Hatsume's work, encouraging her that with her tech skills, she could become an amazing hero. Hatsume expressed her longing to build things rather than fight villains, as it was a passion that ran in her family. Nikki, her friend, insisted that with Hatsume's quirk, she could be a great sniper like those in action movies. Hatsume acknowledged that she might only be useful in certain situations, but she dreamed of creating support gear that would help heroes defeat villains. She envisioned becoming the most famous inventor in the world once everyone recognized her contributions. Nikki, knowing Hatsume's tendency to forget names, playfully reminded her to remember others. They shared a laugh as Hatsume dismissed the idea of romance, insisting that her inventions were her true love. In the present day, Hatsume exclaimed joyfully as she was suddenly wrapped in capture cloth by Aizawa, who found her presence annoying. He reminded her that she wasn't supposed to be there until after lunch, but Hatsume couldn't contain her excitement about showing her inventions to the Hero Corps students. She expressed curiosity about her daughter being present. Midoriya questioned how she knew that girl was her daughter, but Hatsume looked at him, Ida, and Uraraka with a blank expression, asking who they were. Ida, feeling insulted, introduced himself as the person she had tricked during the sports festival, while Uraraka expressed her frustration at being forgotten. Hatsume, however, remained focused on the screen, recognizing her daughter by her distinctive features and expressing her longing to know why Aoi had green tips in her hair. Mina approached Hatsume with a mischievous grin, revealing that Aoi's siblings were the other kids on screen and that Izuku Midoriya was Aoi's father. The background erupted in cheers and whistles from Kirishima, Kaminari, and Siro. Before the conversation could continue, 𝗫𝗠 suggested they return their attention to the screens, noting that Aoi was getting into the swing of things. Aoi, with a joyful shout, swung from building to building, her smile wide as she embraced the thrill of the moment. Aoi felt grateful for the swinging lessons she had taken from Uncle Siro. As she swung around another building, she spotted a group of 2-pointer robots below. Determined to show them what she could do, Aoi landed in front of the robots, ready for action. The robots locked onto her and moved quickly in her direction. Aoi used 4 of her dreadlocks to lift herself off the ground and crawled forward, using the other 4 to lash out and grab a few of the robots, slamming them into each other. The robots that managed to dodge her hair attack attempted to engage her up close, but 𝐒𝐻𝐈 countered with powerful kicks that sent them flying. More robots soon appeared, overwhelming her. Frustration set in as she realized there were too many of them. She knew she couldn't use all of her hair while suspended in the air and needed to gain some distance to get her feet back on the ground. Kicking a robot back, she coiled her 4 dreadlocks like springs and launched herself to a safe distance, but the robots rushed toward her as she landed. Once on solid ground, 𝗎𝐈 wrapped her hair tightly around itself to form 2 long pigtails. With one pigtail, she picked up a manhole cover to use as a shield, and from her pocket, she pulled out a small cube and pressed a button. It unfolded into a giant fist with a large handle, designed to be worn like a glove. 𝗎𝐈 felt relieved to have her dynamic fist with her, even though it was still a prototype. Armed with a giant fist in one pigtail and a makeshift shield in the other, she was ready for battle. She hoped she wouldn't get any motor oil in her hair as she stretched out the pigtail with the fist toward a robot. In the viewing room, Hatsume confronted Midoria, expressing disbelief that he was not only the father of her daughter but also of several other children, each with a different mother. Midoria, blushing from Hatsume's closeness, clarified that his name was Izuku Midoria, not Mr. 10 Million. Uraraka, noticing Midoriya's discomfort, attempted to pull Hatsume away, but her efforts were in vain, and she received a supportive pat on the back from Tsuyu. Hatsume then focused on her daughter's unusual hair and expressed her longing to learn more about the glove 𝗎𝐈 was using. Kaminari commented to his friends Kirishima and 𝗧𝗏 about Hatsume's lack of concern regarding her future daughter being present and her involvement with Midoriya and 3 other girls. 𝗧𝗏 noted that Hatsume seemed unfazed by anything. Kirishima, about to share a story, paused when he noticed Bakugou standing quietly with an annoyed expression. He decided to check on Bakugou. As Kirishima approached, Bakugou growled, demanding to know what he wanted. Kirishima expressed concern for Bakugou's unusual silence, but Bakugou snapped back, telling him to leave. Kirishima offered to be there if Bakugou needed to talk and returned to his friends. Bakugou, frustrated, thought to himself about how the others believed they were special because of Midoriya's future status. He resolved to become number 1 and get back at the girl who had embarrassed him, all while creating small explosions in his hands. Uraraka observed Hatsume's close proximity to Midoriya and sighed, catching the attention of Ida and Tsuyu. Ida asked if something was wrong, and Tsuyu inquired if it was about Hatsume. Uraraka admitted it was obvious, expressing her discomfort with Hatsume's constant presence and their shared interests. Ida reassured her that Hatsume meant well and that Midoriya had many qualities that attracted her attention. Uraraka felt inferior compared to Hatsume, especially since Midoriya had children with Melissa and another girl who seemed more interesting. Tsuyu comforted Uraraka, reminding her of her own great qualities and assuring her that Midoriya cared for her and the others. Uraraka smiled at Tsuyu's words and felt encouraged. Tsuyu suggested that Uraraka, Hatsume, and Melissa should spend time together to get to know each other better. Uraraka agreed, feeling determined to talk to Hatsume about hanging out. Tsuyu remarked to Ida that the semester was going to be long, to which he agreed. Bakugou felt increasingly frustrated as he watched his classmates, particularly Deku, excel and appear cooler than him. Uraraka worried that Izuku might not have enough affection for her, despite his kind heart being the largest in Class 1A. The upcoming chapter would focus on Yori Midoriya, so everyone needed to brush up on fire types. This marked the final chapter of the children's mock exam, followed by 2 chapters leading to the showdown between Class 1A and the Midoriya kids, also known as Team Green. Yori Midoriya possessed the quirk known as Blaze Cat. Unlike her mother, who had a BLD transformation quirk, Yori's ability mutated, granting her the traits of a fire cat girl. She could shoot fireballs from her mouth and tail, and her hands could ignite, allowing her to deliver fiery punches enhanced by cat-like reflexes. At Island, the professor announced that the next test would take place the following day, urging the students to study and be punctual. As the lecture concluded, the classroom emptied, except for a tall, appealing blonde girl with blue eyes sitting at the back, packing her belongings. Melissa's shield had been struggling ever since the villain hostage situation. She asked her friends, Lin and Winona, if they wanted to study together that night. Lin declined, citing a commitment to help her father in his workshop, while Winona mentioned needing to take her pet parrot to the vet. Left alone, Melissa sighed, feeling dejected as she left the classroom. As she walked down the hall, she noticed other students whispering and casting glances her way, making hurtful comments about her father's past. Once back in her dorm room, Melissa threw her things aside and quietly wept on her bed. She felt isolated, believing everyone thought she would become a villain like her father. With her friends avoiding her and her father still under house arrest, she contemplated her future. Looking out the window, she spotted a green bush that reminded her of the boy with freckles and green eyes who had saved her and her father. She whispered his name, Deku, just as a video call from her uncle came through. She quickly composed herself and answered the call, seeing All Might in his slimmer form. Concerned about her uncle's safety during the Kamino Ward incident, she greeted him, trying to hide her tears. All Might apologized for the delay in contacting her, explaining he had been busy at UA. Melissa expressed her relief that he was okay. When All Might inquired about her well-being, she shared her struggles with the stigma surrounding her father's actions and how her friends no longer wanted to spend time with her. All Might expressed his sympathy but offered hope. He revealed that he and her father had discussed her moving to Japan to attend UA, believing it would be the best option for her. Surprised by the suggestion, Melissa hesitated but considered the benefits. She realized she could still contribute to designing and building support gear at UA while being around her friends, including Deku. After a moment of reflection, she decided to accept her uncle's proposal, excited about the opportunity. All Might informed her that the paperwork was already taken care of, and she would be able to move in just 2 days. He reassured her that she would have the same classes and be taught by him, which thrilled her. After saying goodbye, Melissa began packing her belongings, eager to reunite with her friends at UA. In the UA viewing room, students watched in silence as Yori's mock exam unfolded on the screen. The scene depicted a street marred by scorched metal and burn marks, reminiscent of the Hellflame hero, 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 expressed her disbelief, while 𝗬𝗏 echoed her sentiment. Bakugo's frustration was palpable as he muttered angrily. Nezu reminded Aizawa to call the fire department before lunch, to which Aizawa nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, Yori shouted, "Blaze kick," as she executed a powerful kick against a robot's head, using it to propel herself into the air. Flames erupted from her wrists, ankles, and tail as she curled into a fiery ball. With a shout of "Flame Wheel," she barreled through the robots, leaving a scorched trail behind her. After coming to a stop, she placed a hand on her head to steady herself, recovering from the dizzying maneuver. She realized she needed to work on that move as she stepped back, feeling dizzy afterwards. Suddenly, she saw 3 missiles approaching her. With a grin, she pulled her left arm back and moved it forward, unleashing a stream of flames that resulted in a massive explosion. Yori leapt from the smoke, her hands engulfed in flames, and challenged the robots, ready for action. One of the bots attempted to knock her off, but she skillfully hopped off just in time, causing it to collide with another robot. With determination, she called out as her fire bell brightened, launching fireballs from her mouth that obliterated the robots. Feeling triumphant, she sprinted down an alleyway, leaving charred handprints and footprints on the pavement, but halted when she heard an alarm. The announcement concluded the mock exam, instructing everyone to report back to the entrance where Miss Midnight would be waiting. As the Midoriya children made their way back, Nezu remarked on the exam's conclusion, expressing hope that everyone enjoyed the show. Aizawa led the class back to the classroom, reminding them not to overwhelm the Midoriya children with questions. Todoroki found it interesting how Yori used the same fire technique as him. Yaoyorozu called out to him, and he nodded in response. Ida praised Midoriya for how well his children performed, particularly in their use of quirks. Midoriya agreed, noting their impressive control. Hatsume leaned over to see what he was writing in his notebook and asked about it. Midoriya explained that it was his hero journal, where he documented quirks he encountered. Hatsume excitedly grabbed the notebook, exclaiming about the potential for new inventions, insisting that he accompany her to the workshop after school. Midoriya mentioned their children could come too, and Ochako playfully interjected, urging Hatsume not to monopolize him. Mineta, feeling envious, remarked on Midoriya's luck with the ladies, while 𝗧𝗏 teased about a slideshow he had prepared, with Kaminari chiming in that he helped with it. As Midnight skirted the Midoriya children back to Aizawa's class on a campus cart, she found herself amused by the situation, especially with one of the children napping on her lap. She attempted small talk, confirming their identities as Midoriya's kids. Aoi introduced herself and her siblings, pointing out Yori, who was still asleep. Midnight inquired about their different mothers, and Nana confirmed it, prompting Midnight to think about Midoriya's busy life. Toshi whispered to his sisters, wondering if they should be concerned about their dad, but Nana reassured him. After a brief visit to the nurse's office, they arrived at Class 1A, greeted by congratulations from their classmates. Midnight left with a playful wink at Midoriya, causing him to blush while Uraraka hugged his arm, casting a glance at Midnight. Hatsume embraced her daughter, commenting on her resemblance to both her and Midoriya. Aoi requested her mother to stop hugging her, noting the grease smell and asking her to use Midoriya's actual name. Todoroki helped by reminding her that it was Izuku Midoriya. Hatsume turned back to Aoi, bombarding her with questions about the gadgets she used during the exam. Yori spotted Todoroki and rushed to him, giving him a big hug and calling him Uncle Shoto-sensei. Todoroki was taken aback by the title, and Yori explained how her father had asked Todoroki to help her control her quirk. She demonstrated her newfound ability by igniting a small flame in her hand, proudly stating that she could use her fire just like him. Todoroki smiled softly and ignited his own flame, affirming her progress. Momo observed them, impressed by Todoroki's rapport with the kids. Nana reminded everyone to avoid setting off the fire alarms, pointing out Aizawa, who was already asleep in his sleeping bag. Aizawa confirmed her warning, prompting both Todoroki and Yori to extinguish their flames with apologies. Toshi excitedly approached his mother, Uraraka, with admiration in his eyes, eager to share how cool he felt during the exam. "Of course I did, my little Astro Boy. You were amazing out there," Uraraka replied, still getting used to having a son. Toshi shared that he had watched some of her old videos from the sports festival and had drawn inspiration from them. He remembered asking his mother for those videos to take plenty of notes. "We all train very hard to be the best heroes we can be, just like you," Nana said, standing behind her brother. Midoriya smiled at his children and expressed how proud he and their mothers were of them for giving it their all. "And you should be," 𝗫𝗠 said as he arrived at their doorway. He greeted everyone and announced that he had the Midoriya children's results, adding that the next generation was impressive. As he walked toward the board to display their scores, he mused that he might have to make the entrance exam more difficult for future students. Everyone stared in shock at the Midoriya kids' scores. Toshi, 109, Nana, 110, Aoi, 107, Yori. Comments of amazement filled the classroom as they processed the impressive results. Yori jumped up and down, celebrating her victory as her siblings congratulated her. 𝗓𝗏 noted that they had even beaten Bakugou's score by at least 30 points, which caused Bakugou to glare at her with frustration. He couldn't believe that 4 kids had surpassed his entrance exam score, especially since it was Deku's children who had done it. He stood up at his desk, demanding to take their mock exam. 𝗫𝗠 calmly informed Bakugou that the mock exam was only for the children and asked him to sit down, which he reluctantly did. Kaminari leaned back toward Kirishima, whispering about Bakugou's mood. Kirishima replied that Bakugou had been off ever since returning from the Kamino incident. Aoi expressed her dismay at having to clean out her mother's lab, but Nana reassured her that they would help. Aoi smiled and thanked her sister. Hatsume, excited, asked Aoi about her lab, bombarding her with questions about what it looked like and whether she had built many gadgets there. The antics drew amused glances from everyone, with Tokoyami commenting that even though Aoi was the child, Hatsume was acting more like one. Toshi turned to Nana, wondering if they could have earned more points if rescue points had been included. Nana reflected that in a real entrance exam, they would have competed against other participants for points, so their scores would have been higher since they only competed against themselves. She continued to mutter her thoughts as Toshi and Yori listened with interest. Uraraka leaned toward Deku, teasing him about the family trait of muttering. Deku rubbed the back of his head, acknowledging that it seemed to run in the family. 𝗫𝗳𝗠 then informed everyone that they should be ready for their hero class later that day after lunch. Not only would they face off against the Midoriya kids, but Eraserhead would also explain a special assignment they would work on during hero class the following day. With that, he dismissed them for lunch. As the students packed up, Yori broke the silence by running out of the classroom, yelling about meat as she headed toward the cafeteria. Tenya snapped out of his thoughts and chased after her, reminding her not to run in the halls and emphasizing the importance of respecting the school environment. This prompted everyone to gather their things and head out. Midoriya remarked on Yori's enthusiasm for meat, particularly steak and fish, as he followed his children and friends. He noticed Hatsume heading in the opposite direction and invited her to join them for lunch. Hatsume was surprised that they wanted to eat lunch with her but agreed, mentioning she needed to inform Power Loader of her whereabouts since she had left unexpectedly. Aizawa, still wrapped in his sleeping bag, inched out of the classroom and told her he had already informed Power Loader, urging her to go to lunch without delay. Aoi eagerly pulled her mother along, encouraging her to join them. As they made their way to the cafeteria, Hatsume marveled at the unexpected invitation. Soon, the lunchroom doors burst open, followed by a yellow blur that rushed in. A little girl with messy yellow hair styled in 2 buns, cat ears, a tail, and reddish-orange cat eyes grabbed a tray. Lunch Rush, who recognized every student at UA to ensure they received their preferred meals, looked at her curiously. Yori, realizing her cat instincts kicked in at the mention of lunch, suddenly remembered she had left the classroom alone and was now in front of a complete stranger. She quickly hid her face behind the tray, her cat ears folding down. She shyly introduced herself as Yori Midoriya and requested some steak. Lunch Rush, momentarily distracted by a notification on his phone, answered a call from Principal 𝗫𝗠𝗠. After a brief conversation, he turned back to Yori and asked how she would like her steak. Yori lowered her tray just enough to reveal her eyes and replied that she wanted it medium rare. Lunch Rush assured her that it was coming. Right up, prepared her food and handed it to her. She thanked him and went to find a table. As more students arrived, Yori sat at a table by herself, feeling nervous under the curious gazes of her peers. Whispers surrounded her, with students commenting on her appearance and age. Normally, she would have eagerly dug into her steak by now, but without her family around, she felt anxious. To calm herself until her family arrived, she pulled out her phone and put in her headphones. She scrolled through her playlists until she found her favorite pop song from her time in the future, performed by a famous Vocaloid. The song cover featured a pink techno-like mermaid with white hair and pink streaks, known as 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗏. As she played the song, Yori was able to tune out the other students and enjoy her steak. Soon, Tenya arrived, searching for Yori. He spotted her at the table and caught her attention. He gently reminded her that she shouldn't run off, especially in an unfamiliar place, and whispered that she was aiming to attend this school in the future. Yori apologized, promising it wouldn't happen again. Tenya sighed, urging her to be more responsible from now on before he went to wait in line. Class 1A entered, and Hatsume joined the line. Nana noticed Yori already enjoying her steak and commented on how much she must like meat. Kirishima watched in awe as Yori savored her meal, while Nana explained that it was part of how Yori's quirk affected her body, leaving Kirishima momentarily dumbfounded. Aoi chimed in, pulling out a small notebook and explaining that quirks could influence a person's eating habits. She mentioned that in rare cases, someone might be born with a defect affecting their suitability for their quirks. Midoriya noticed Aoyama flinch at this mention, looking uneasy. Yaoyorozu questioned where Aoi had pulled the notebook from, and Uraraka remarked on its similarity to the one Deku had shown her at the sports festival. Aoi proudly stated that her notebook was filled with information about quirks, their functions, and potential uses. Deku, excited, revealed his own hero notebook, prompting Toshi and Nana to pull out their notebooks as well. Yaoyorozu, still curious, asked again about the notebooks, but the others continued discussing their contents. Midoriya was intrigued and asked what was inside them. Toshi opened his notebook to a page featuring a hero and explained that it contained details about various heroes, including their names, rankings, and types. Siro and others expressed interest in whether they were included in Toshi's notes, while Toshi promised to share the information once they were seated. Tenya inquired about Nana's notebook, which contained strategies for various situations and quirk training regimens. He noted how beneficial such notes could be for their discussions. After a few minutes, the group settled down with Yori, who was now sitting with Tsuyu and Todoroki, who had brought their own lunches. Midoriya took a seat across from Yori, with Hatsume and Uraraka on either side of him. Tenya sat next to Tsuyu, and Yaoyorozu was next to Todoroki, with Nana across from her. Aoi sat between Nana and Hatsume, while Toshi sat next to his mother. Uraraka remarked on the amount of food Nana had on her plate, noticing the extra fish and vegetables. Nana passed her sister Yori the extra fish and veggies, who accepted them while grumbling to herself. Nana thought about how she needed to ensure Yori maintained a balanced diet and not just eat meat. As she took a bite of her salad, Tsu commented on Nana's maturity, saying she acted the most responsible despite being the second oldest. Nana reflected on the times when Toshi and Aoi had tested new gadgets, staring blankly at them. Aoi defended herself, claiming that when she tested gadgets, she ensured they were completely safe. Everyone turned their attention to Mei, who mentioned she had a new gadget to test and encouraged Izuku to join her later. Izuku, concerned for his safety, asked if it would explode. Mei eagerly anticipated testing it out, ignoring his question as she returned to her food. Mina joined the group, asking Toshi about their future hero rankings. Kaminari, Kirishima, and Shiro leaned in to listen. Toshi agreed to share the rankings but warned them not to let it go to their heads. He remembered the latest hero rankings and showed them the list on his phone. Most of Class 1A had made it into the top 30, and excitement filled the air as they reviewed the names. Uraraka expressed her disbelief at being in the top 5, shaking Deku with joy. Yaoyorozu congratulated Todoroki on his second-place ranking, and he smiled contentedly. Tsuyu was thrilled to be number 6, and Yori pointed out her popularity with the children in the city. Ida felt proud to carry on the legacy of his brother, the former Ingenium, and Toshi praised him for being a leader to many sidekicks. Mineta, feeling left out, dramatically placed his face on the table, tears trailing down. Shiro teased him, offering 10 reasons for his low ranking. Kaminari and Kirishima celebrated their spots in the top 10, but they were shocked to learn that Bakugou, the explosion hero Dynamite, was ranked higher than Mineta. Bakugou was frustrated, demanding to know how he was only number 10. Toshi explained that Kaminari's popularity surged after he helped keep the power on during a blackout in Tokyo. Nana added that Bakugou's attitude toward the public and his tendency for collateral damage contributed to his ranking. She mentioned a video of him leaving an injured citizen behind while focusing on capturing a villain, which shocked everyone. Kirishima checked on Bakugou, who was still in disbelief. When Kirishima placed a hand on his shoulder, Bakugou brushed it away, declaring he was no longer hungry and storming out, visibly frustrated. Kirishima wondered if Bakugou would be okay, while Kaminari questioned the necessity of Nana's comments. Nana believed it was better for Bakugou to learn now rather than risk becoming like Endeavor. Midoriya and Todoroki exchanged knowing glances. Suddenly, Monoma approached their table, surprising everyone. He began to taunt them about the villains targeting their class but was interrupted when Kendo knocked him out with a chop to the back of his head. She handed Monoma over to Tetsu, who slung him over his shoulder. Kendo apologized for Monoma's behavior, explaining that he still blamed them for the camp incident, but the rest of them knew it wasn't their fault. Tetsu noticed the 4 kids with them and asked who they were. Aoi introduced herself and her siblings, pointing out Toshi, who was busy eating, and Yori and Nana, who was trying to get Yori to eat her veggies. Kendo recognized the Midoriya name and asked if they were cousins. Nana playfully claimed they were Izuku's children from the future, leaving everyone in shock. Midoriya worried about the implications of her statement, questioning the rules of time travel. Nana speculated about the multiverse theory and time paradoxes while tickling Yori, allowing her to stuff veggies into her mouth. Kendo and Tetsu remained stunned by what they had just heard. Kendo remarked on the unexpected presence of kids from the future as she turned to leave, trying to maintain her composure. She urged Tetsu to follow her, carrying an unconscious Monoma with him. Tetsu agreed, saying goodbye to Class 1A as they departed. Midoriya reflected on the encounter, noting that it could have gone better. He continued to eat, encouraging his classmates to finish their lunch since they still had time for hero training. Aizawa welcomed everyone to Gym Gamma, where he, his students, and Hatsume entered a spacious gym. 𝗵𝗵𝗲, Midnight, and ectoplasm stood at the front, ready to greet them. 𝗵𝗵𝗲 had just finished fixing the floor and explained that they were in the training dining land, which puzzled many of the students. He clarified that he was using his quirk to create various environments and scenarios in the gym. Ida, curious about their purpose there, asked why they needed to be at the gym. Aizawa informed them that their next challenge would be obtaining provisional hero licenses, which was a difficult test with only a 50% passing rate. He emphasized that they would be developing their ultimate moves over the summer. Ida raised a question about the necessity of these moves and whether they should be in their hero costumes. Aizawa explained that heroes must be prepared to rescue people from various incidents and that the exam was designed to measure their aptitude. Midnight and the other teachers elaborated on the importance of these super moves. Aizawa then indicated that the plan had changed due to the arrival of 4 younger kids. Nana stepped forward, announcing that she and her siblings would challenge some of the students to give them a taste of what to expect in the exams. She had discussed this idea with Aizawa, who approved it. Kirishima expressed doubt about the challenge, noting that while the younger kids had handled robots, the students had faced actual villains and pro-heroes. Kaminari agreed, adding to the skepticism. Nana, maintaining a neutral expression, responded by selecting them as the first challengers, which surprised them. She then asked for a third volunteer, and Bakugou stepped up, ready to join. Nana declared that she, Toshi, and Aoi would be their challengers. As they moved to the center of the gym, Nana instructed Yori to stay with their father, emphasizing that she was still too young for actual fighting. Yori complied and joined the rest of the class on the sidelines, resting her head on Deku's lap. Ochako commented on Yori's cuteness, comparing her to a cat, while Hagakure and Mina captured the moment with a photo. Sato wondered who would win the upcoming fight, and Momo speculated that Bakugou and Kirishima would be the heavy hitters, while Kaminari struggled with controlling his electricity. Siro pointed out that since they were Midoriya's kids, they likely had a plan in place. Todoroki asked Midoriya for his thoughts on the match, but Midoriya admitted it was hard to say. Yori chimed in, predicting that they would get creamed, catching everyone's attention. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the gym as the ground began to fracture, sending rocks flying above Toshi, Nana, and 𝗬𝗲𝗄. Kirishima, Kaminari, and Bakugou quickly jumped back to avoid the debris. Ojiro questioned what had just happened. In the center of the gym, Bakugou greeted Nana as she arrived. She apologized for taking time to ensure Yori was safe with Deku. Kaminari asked if Yori was skilled enough to participate, but Nana shook her head, explaining that she was too young to fight actual opponents until she gained more control over her quirk. Kirishima asked if they were sure about the challenge, warning that they wouldn't hold back. Toshi, filled with determination, encouraged them to give it their all. Bakugou, ready for action, yelled for his teammates to get back as he unleashed a powerful blast that sent Kirishima and Kaminari flying. The ground shattered beneath them, sending concrete floating into the air. Once they regained their footing, they saw Nana, Toshi, and Aoi still standing confidently at the center. Kaminari shouted for a warning next time, but Aoi explained that there were no warnings for natural disasters or villain attacks. Toshi added that the same applied to the license exams, while Nana activated her gauntlets, her serious cerulean eyes fixed on the boys, signaling that the challenge was about to begin. If you don't prepare yourself, then you'll fail to save those in need. Now come on, Nana urged as she banged her gauntlets together. The teachers, Eraserhead, Midnight, 𝗵𝗵𝗲, and ectoplasm, stood off to the side, supervising the battle. 𝗵𝗵𝗲 asked Aizawa if those were really Midoriya's kids. Aizawa confirmed that they were indeed his problem children's children while he crawled into his sleeping bag. Ectoplasm commented on their impressive performance during the mock exams, noting the girl with pink and green-tipped dreadlocks slamming the hard concrete with her hair. Midnight remarked that they would make great heroes in the future, especially since they were Midoriya's children. Aizawa groaned, acknowledging that they would be an even bigger problem if they inherited their father's habits. In the center gym, Aoi expressed impatience as they waited for their opponents to make the next move. Kirishima lamented that they hadn't had a chance to come up with a plan, while Bakugou confidently declared that their strategy was simple: just beat the kids until they couldn't fight anymore, creating small explosions in his palms. Kaminari questioned Bakugou's logic, but Toshi interrupted, launching floating debris toward them. Kirishima and Bakugou countered the flying debris by smashing and blowing it up, but soon after, the pink-haired girl grabbed their waists. The trio was lifted and slammed into the ground, with Kaminari groaning in confusion about what had just happened. Toshi shrugged, wondering why people never started with their strongest attacks first. Aoi agreed, retracting her hair and questioning if their opponents were done. Nana observed that Bakugou quickly got back up and rocketed toward her, prompting her to lunge at him. Bakugou taunted that he would make her cry home to her mother, to which Nana replied that her mother wouldn't arrive until the next few chapters. She caught Bakugou's arm before he could hit her and flipped him over, knocking the breath out of him. Nana instructed Aoi and Toshi to handle the other two while she faced Bakugou. Angered, Bakugou got back up, realizing that the blonde girl had used the same move as Deku during their battle. Nana mockingly suggested he should stop starting with her right hook every time. Bakugou charged forward again, attempting a feint with an explosion that created smoke. He maneuvered above her to hit with a real explosion, but Nana anticipated his move and countered with a fist to his stomach. She pointed out that it was the same move he had used on her father. Bakugou, frustrated, prepared a stun grenade, but Nana revealed that her prescription glasses allowed her to see clearly despite the bright light, enabling her to knock him off his feet. Meanwhile, Kirishima quickly got up after Bakugou left, relieved that he had activated his quirk before being slammed. He helped Kaminari up, who wished for some defensive capabilities. As the other two kids approached, Kaminari pushed Kirishima out of the way to avoid Aoi's extended hair. Aoi acknowledged his dodge and challenged them on what they would do next. Kirishima hardened one arm into a fist and sharpened the other for cutting, declaring he would smash and cut his way through to help his brother. Kaminari added that he would provide support by covering himself in electricity. Toshi, with Aoi providing him with ammo, flung rocks at them while teasing that he could easily make them float in the air but wanted to give them a fighting chance. Kirishima charged forward through the onslaught. Meanwhile, the rest of Class 1A watched in awe as 𝐒𝐻𝐿 commented on how amazing the kids were. Tokoyami noted their surprise attack had prevented their opponents from forming a plan, while Yaoyorozu pointed out how Aoi had caught them off guard while Bakugou and Kirishima were busy destroying the rocks. Uraraka mentioned that Nana had used the same move Deku had during their first battle trial, and Deku recognized that while her quirk might not be destructive, it allowed her to predict her opponent's next moves. Suddenly, Bakugou roared in anger and grabbed Nana by her gauntlet, using explosions to propel himself and throw her toward her siblings, shouting in frustration. Deku watched in worry as his daughter was launched through the air, but Yori, resting on his lap, reassured him that they would be all right. Deku acknowledged his concern, gently rubbing Yori's head. Ochako leaned against Deku, giggling at the moment. Hatsume observed the scene with a soft smile, appreciating how great of a dad he was. Back in the fight, Nana called out as she flew through the air. Both Aoi and Toshi rushed to catch her. Toshi managed to catch her mid-air, and Aoi wrapped her dreadlocks around Toshi's waist to stop their momentum as he made contact with Nana. Toshi floated down with his sister, checking if she was okay. Nana adjusted her glasses and observed the scene. She noted that Bakugou, Kirishima, and Kaminari were preparing to regroup for another attempt. As Bakugou approached his teammates, Kirishima remarked on the seriousness of the situation. Bakugou, in his usual brash manner, called for his friends to come closer. Kaminari joined them, curious about their next move. In a sudden burst of energy, Bakugou lifted Kirishima by his gym uniform collar and launched him toward the younger students with an explosive force. Kirishima quickly crossed his arms over his face, activating his hardening ability as he landed between the kids, creating a protective barrier. Aoi, watching from the sidelines, reassured Toshi that Kirishima would be fine, despite being momentarily immobilized in the air. Kaminari expressed his surprise at Bakugo's actions, while Bakugo threatened him next, grabbing his collar and sending him soaring through the air. Aoi caught Kaminari mid-flight with her hair, holding him upside down. As Kaminari struggled to escape Aoi's grip, he pointed out Bakugo's rapid approach. Bakugo rocketed toward them, using his explosions to maneuver like a missile. Kirishima recognized the move from Bakugo's previous battle and attempted to evade, but both he and Kaminari felt trapped. Aoi, determined to protect them, extended her hair to form a dome around the group just as Bakugo unleashed his attack. The explosion created a massive shockwave, but Aoi's protective barrier held firm. When the smoke cleared, Bakugo was astonished to see that they were unharmed. Aoi explained that her hair was specially treated to withstand heat and damage, thanks to her mother's innovative gel. As she reached out to Bakugo, he deflected her hair with another explosion, unaware that Nana had snuck up behind him. She pinned him to the ground, securing his arms behind his back to prevent any further explosions. With Bakugo subdued, Nana turned her attention to the teachers, signaling that it was time to wrap things up. Aizawa emerged from his sleeping bag, instructing everyone to release their holds. Aoi gently set Kaminari down, Toshi let Kirishima land with a thud, and Nana finally released Bakugo, who immediately stood up, visibly frustrated. Aizawa surveyed the damage in the gym, contemplating an early dismissal for the students. He addressed the class, asking them to allow the trio a moment to reflect on their performance. Nana thanked Aizawa and prompted the class to analyze the mistakes made during the training session. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 pointed out that the trio had failed to devise a plan before being caught off guard. Kirishima admitted that he had underestimated their opponents. Nana elaborated that they were from the future, where they had already become pro-heroes, giving them insight into their opponent's abilities. Toshi added that it was a mistake to assume an opponent lacked knowledge about them, while Aoi reminded everyone that during their license exam, they would face competitors from various schools, emphasizing the importance of not underestimating anyone. As the class congratulated the trio on their victory, Aizawa announced that they could head back to the dormitory since the gym was in disarray. He also gave Hatsume the option to return to the workshop or join them later. Once everyone had left, 𝗬𝗵𝗲 began repairing the gym with his quirk, reflecting on the impressive skills of the students. Later that afternoon, as everyone walked back to their dormitory to rest, Hatsume had already departed for the development studio. The students buzzed with excitement about the upcoming lesson, where they would create their ultimate moves. Kaminari expressed his enthusiasm, recalling a childhood dream of wielding an electric sword. Kirishima chimed in, mentioning he might need a costume adjustment to ensure he could carry others safely without causing harm with his hardening ability. Nana praised Kirishima's thoughtfulness, while she and her siblings kept their own plans for costumes and moves to themselves, eager to see what everyone would come up with. Ojiro expressed that it was a good reason, sharing his longing to come up with a unique move, but feeling limited by his tail. Tokoyami reassured him that he would think of something. He admitted that he needed to improve his close-range defenses, as he couldn't rely solely on Dark Shadow to fight his battles. Dark Shadow emerged, voicing his independence, while the others continued their discussions. Izuku, still getting used to addressing Ochako by her first name, asked her what her plans were. She mentioned needing to increase the time she could float and considered carrying nausea pills to avoid any discomfort. In turn, Izuku shared his idea of using arm braces to prevent strain, recalling the risks of overusing his quirk. Ochako remembered the state of Izuku's arms during the summer camp incident when the villains attacked. Just as she was about to ask him something, Yori interrupted, asking what they would have for dinner. Midoriya pondered the question, noting that the kitchen had been practically destroyed that morning. Toshi excitedly suggested pizza, while Aoi chimed in with a preference for pepperoni and sausage. Jairu caught a whiff of something delicious, prompting Mina to express her eagerness for the meal. 𝗧𝗏 recalled the kitchen fire and questioned who was cooking if it was out of commission. 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐴 wondered the same, leading everyone to rush toward their dormitory. As they approached, the enticing aroma intensified, urging them to hurry. The class burst through the front door to find a short, plump woman with green hair cooking, accompanied by All Might and Principal Nezu, who were enjoying tea at a table. Inko Midoriya greeted them warmly, stirring a pot of noodles. Ida broke the ice by asking 𝗫𝗠 why Midoriya's mother was present. 𝗫𝗠 explained that he had informed Ms. Midoriya she would be staying to watch over her children while the students attended classes. He produced 4 passes, explaining that they would allow the younger Midoriya siblings access to the campus under Inko's supervision. Toshi and Yori gazed at the passes with excitement, while Nana thanked 𝗫𝗠 and bowed. 𝐒𝐽 declared her intention to visit the development studio to assist her mother, causing Ida to feel a chill. Yaoyorozu inquired about the sleeping arrangements for the Midoriya family. 𝗫𝗠 led the students upstairs, explaining that Mrs. Midoriya would stay on the newly expanded 2nd floor. Upon reaching the top floor, 𝗫𝗠 pointed out the rooms, indicating that Izuku and the younger Midoriya siblings would share one, while he would have a separate room. Midoriya questioned the size of the bed, and 𝗫𝗠 suggested it was meant for him and his wives, causing both he and Uraraka to blush at the thought. Tsuyu confirmed that Hatsume would also be living in the same dorm, which was met with mixed reactions from Kaminari and Mineta, who felt a twinge of jealousy. Mina teased Uraraka about sharing a bed with her crush. 𝗫𝗠 encouraged everyone to return downstairs to enjoy the meal prepared by Mrs. Midoriya. When they returned, they found All Might assisting Inko in the kitchen. Inko reminded him to chop the onions well for the best flavor. All Might acknowledged her advice as he noticed the students arriving. Mina leaned in to comment on how close All Might seemed to be getting with Midoriya's mother, prompting Izuku to reflect on the situation. All Might invited everyone to join the feast, and they eagerly gathered to enjoy the delicious food. The students quickly fell in love with Inko's home-cooked meals. Kirishima praised her cooking, while Shiro expressed his longing to eat it all day. Inko moved around, filling everyone's plates and mentioning that she had prepared a special meal to support their training in developing super moves. Midoriya sat with his children, enjoying katsudon, while Uraraka savored rice and sushi, Ida relished beef stew, Todoroki enjoyed soba, and Tsuyu had curry. Midoriya noticed his mother approaching and scooted over to make room for her at the table. Inko observed the group gathered around her table, recognizing the close friendships her son had formed. She noted Ida, Azui, Todoroki, and then turned her attention to Uraraka, mentioning how often Izuku spoke about them, particularly her. Ida expressed gratitude for having Midoriya as a true friend, while Uraraka admitted that she might not have been there if it weren't for him. Inko looked at Uraraka with a hint of concern when she heard the nickname Deku used. Midoriya, having just finished a bite of katsudon, reassured his mother that Uraraka meant it positively, as a term of encouragement. He explained that it was thanks to her that he had adopted it as part of his hero name, which surprised Uraraka, who hadn't realized her impact on him. Inko thanked her, and Uraraka, feeling a bit embarrassed, waved her hand dismissively, saying it was nothing more than a name that sounded encouraging. Inko then noticed Todoroki quietly enjoying his soba and remarked on it. He responded with a thumbs up and continued slurping his noodles. Inko decided to make more for him the next day, pleased that everyone was enjoying the meal. All Might, too, was relishing the food, thanks to the gummy Nana had given him, while even Bakugou seemed to be enjoying the spicy noodles. 𝐒𝐽 watched her younger sister Yori devour her katsudon quickly and cautioned her to slow down, reminding her of a previous incident. Jairu, overhearing, asked what had happened last time. 𝐒𝐽 explained that Yori had eaten too fast and ended up with hiccups, which were accompanied by small bursts of fire. Toshi handed Yori a cup of water, while Ida leaned back to avoid the fiery hiccups. Nana added that this tendency came from Yori's mother, who was always eager to eat. Curious, Inko asked about Yori's mother, and Mina expressed her interest as well, wondering if it was someone they knew. Yaoyorozu speculated that Yori's cat-based quirk and flame quirk suggested her mother was someone they hadn't met yet. Yori, trembling, dropped her fork, drawing everyone's attention. Deku approached her, offering comfort and assuring her it was okay if she didn't want to talk about it. Yori, however, decided to share, explaining that people often avoided her once they learned about her mother, which made her cat ears droop. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 insisted that no one would want to avoid her because of her kindness. Deku, recalling his own experiences, reassured Yori that she was loved, and if she felt comfortable, she could share her mother's identity. After a heartfelt hug, Yori smiled and prepared to reveal her mother's name. She addressed Ochako and Azui, asking for their understanding before pulling out her phone to show a picture of a woman with pale skin, golden cat-like eyes, and messy blonde hair. Yori announced that her mother was Himiko Midoriya, known in their time as Himiko Toga. Gasps filled the room as everyone processed the revelation that Yori's mother was a former villain who had once attacked their camp and kidnapped Bakugou. Bakugou, shocked, pointed out the implications, but Inko quickly reprimanded him, urging him to be respectful. Yori hissed at Bakugou for his choice of words, and Nana covered Yori's ears, reminding everyone to refrain from harsh language and to let Yori finish her story. Yori then asked if anyone had heard of quirk insanity. Yaoyorozu recalled reading about it, noting that it involved quirks that required special care to maintain sanity. Yori explained that her mother's quirk, transformation, allowed her to become anyone but required BLD to do so. Midoriya, intrigued, inquired about the duration of the transformations and whether she retained the memories of those she transformed into. Yori continued, explaining that her mother needed BLD to stay sane, and after being captured, her father had helped rehabilitate her so she could live a normal life, which was what her mother had always wanted. Inko wondered why Himiko's parents hadn't helped her, to which Yori replied that her mother rarely spoke about her childhood. Midoriya nodded in understanding, and the group reflected on the complexities of Yori's family history, feeling a deeper connection to her and a greater appreciation for the challenges she faced. Kaminari was puzzled and asked what was meant by the earlier statement. Midoriya explained that during a villain attack, a girl had jumped on him, introducing herself and preparing to strike. However, he noticed that her eyes didn't reflect the gaze of a killer. Instead, they seemed filled with hunger and anger. Uraraka recalled that the girl had expressed a longing to be friends with her and 𝗬, which she had dismissed as madness at the time but now understood better. Yori shared a memory of her mother, who had often said that if she could start over and live a normal life before becoming a villain, she would. Midoriya smiled at his daughter, reassuring her that he would save her mother and bring her home next time they met. Uraraka echoed his sentiment, patting Yori's head affectionately. Yori purred in delight at the attention. Suddenly, Nana's voice echoed in their minds, suggesting that the next encounter was closer than they thought. A loud boom interrupted their thoughts as the front doors burst open, revealing Hatsume, who cheerfully announced her arrival while wheeling in her belongings. Everyone stared at her in surprise as she asked what she had missed. After a brief explanation, the group finished their meals and retreated to their rooms. All Might and Inko were busy tidying up the kitchen, sharing quiet laughter. Toshi, Nana, Aoi, and Yori entered their new room, which was furnished with 2 bunk beds, desks, a table, a television, a corner filled with plush animals, a bathroom, and a closet stocked with clothes. Aoi and Toshi quickly claimed the top bunks, while Yori discovered a stuffed fish plushie in the corner and began to play with it. Nana explored the closet, finding uniforms and casual clothes featuring various heroes, along with a note from Nezu stating that the uniforms were only to be worn at school. She held up the UA uniform against herself, admiring it in the mirror. Across the hall, Hatsume and Uraraka lounged on a large bed in their pajamas. Hatsume remarked that Yori's mother was one of the villains who had attacked them. Uraraka explained that the girl was suffering from quirk insanity, as her quirk required BLD to function and left her with a craving for it. Hatsume expressed sympathy for her. Uraraka affirmed that she intended to forgive her when the time came. Just then, the bathroom door opened, revealing a flustered Midoriya in his sleepwear. Uraraka noticed his red face and inquired about it. He explained that so much had happened that day, and now he was about to sleep in the same bed with 2 girls. Hatsume, unfazed, reminded him that they were his future wives. Uraraka, embarrassed, covered her face, while Midoriya looked as though he might faint. Hatsume beckoned him to join them, and after gathering his courage, he crawled onto the bed, settling between them. Hatsume hugged him, playfully pressing against his side, while Uraraka, despite her embarrassment, did the same. Meanwhile, Toshi and Aoi were flipping through TV channels while Nana sat on the bottom bunk, gently petting Yori, who rested her head on Nana's lap. Aoi remarked on how strange it was to watch shows knowing their outcomes. Toshi noticed Nana's familiar expression and teased her about planning something. She confirmed that she was indeed planning, explaining that they had a rare chance to change the future. She mentioned the possibility of saving Uncle Mirio's quirk, rescuing Yori's mother early, and even saving Night Eye. Aoi raised concerns about the potential consequences of altering the past, but Toshi reminded them of their father's advice to seize opportunities to save others. Aoi suggested visiting the development studio to create inventions that could assist them. Yori, eager to help despite her small size, expressed her longing to contribute. Nana closed her eyes and activated her quirk, combining it with one for all to glimpse multiple possible futures. She called this ability Future Gaze. After scanning various paths, she opened her eyes and shared that she had seen many outcomes, both good and bad, but if they executed their plan correctly, there was a 90% chance of success. Toshi cheered at the prospect, and Aoi enthusiastically agreed, ready to change the outcome together. Yori got up and joined in. Nana informed everyone that they needed to follow the plan, and they all paid attention to her. At 7 a.m., Izuku experienced one of the best sleeps he had in a while. Not only was he nestled between the mothers of his children, who were both soft and appealing, but he found himself trapped and unable to escape. Ochako hugged him tightly, her warmth enveloping him, while Mei had her arms wrapped around his torso, and he could sense her gentle breathing. Izuku attempted to get up without disturbing them, but their grips held him firmly in place. Ochako murmured in her sleep, pulling Izuku closer. He felt a blush rise on his cheeks as he thought about how he could hear her heartbeat. He needed to get up. He didn't want to miss his morning run with Ida. Despite his efforts, he found himself unable to break free. He whispered to them, asking if he could please get up to prepare for his run. Both Ochako and Mei responded sleepily, expressing their reluctance to let him go. After struggling for a while, he finally surrendered to the comfort of their embrace and drifted back to sleep. Downstairs, Ida was filling his water bottle with orange juice while waiting for Midoriya to arrive. Inko was preparing breakfast for the class. Ida glanced at his watch and remarked that Midoriya should have been there by now. Inko reassured him that he would be down soon and asked if he could help her with breakfast while they waited. Ida agreed and moved to the kitchen. Curious, Inko asked how long he had been friends with Izuku. Ida reflected that they had become friends shortly after their first day of school. He admitted that he hadn't thought much of Izuku at first, recalling moments when he had called him out for being distracted during a speech and for muttering during an exam. Inko suggested that Izuku was likely just nervous. Ida acknowledged that he had felt bad for his actions as he got to know Izuku better, realizing that beneath his shyness lay a dependable friend. Inko expressed her gratitude that Izuku had friends who cared for him. Ida, curious about Izuku's past, asked if he had friends before attending UA. Inko explained that Izuku hadn't had many friends in middle school. Ida then brought up Bakugou, wondering if he and Izuku had been friends since they attended the same school. Inko sighed, noting that Bakugou had not been a friend to Izuku since he developed his quirk. Ida felt a pang of concern but chose not to pry further when he saw the sadness in Inko's eyes. As they continued preparing breakfast, Inko smiled, grateful for the friends Izuku had now. Ida affirmed that he and the others would always be there for Midoriya. Just then, Nana, Toshi, and Aoi entered the common area, greeting Inko and Ida. Inko asked where little Yori was, and Aoi revealed that she was still asleep, cradling her younger sister in a basket formed by her hair. Ida inquired about Midoriya, wondering why he hadn't joined him for their morning run. Toshi suggested that Izuku was probably still in bed with their mothers, who were known for being affectionate and unlikely to let him go. Nana, feeling mischievous, rummaged through the kitchen cabinets and found plastic wrap before heading upstairs to the boys' side. Soon, the delicious aroma of cooked bacon, eggs, and pancakes filled the dormitory, drawing everyone down one by one. Kaminari, Kirishima, and Siro entered the common area, marveling at the wonderful smell. Inko welcomed them, inviting them to grab a plate as she finished a fresh batch of pancakes. Mina joined them, excited about the pancakes. Almost everyone had gathered in the common area, except for two people. Midoriya, Uraraka, and Mei finally made their appearance, with Midoriya immediately apologizing to 𝗧𝗏 for missing their morning run. 𝗧𝗏 reassured him that they could reschedule. Meanwhile, Nana tried to wake Yori, who was still asleep, gently urging her that it was breakfast time. Yori stirred, stretching her arms and sleepily greeting everyone. Mina and Toru both expressed their delight at the scene, then turned to Uraraka and Hatsume, who were enjoying their breakfast. Mina commented that it seemed like the two had slept well and teased them about the previous night. Uraraka blushed, recalling how she had woken up cuddling Midoriya and almost panicked, while Hatsume appeared unfazed. Hatsume remarked that it was the best sleep she had in ages since Izuku felt like a big, muscly teddy bear. Uraraka exclaimed Hatsume's name in surprise, and Hatsume playfully suggested that Uraraka had also enjoyed some cuddling. Mina looked at Hatsume knowingly, anticipating some teasing. Sada chimed in, mentioning that eating another of Mama's eggs was alright, while Kirishima praised Midoriya's mother's cooking, claiming nothing beat a home-cooked breakfast. Midoriya humbly acknowledged 𝗧𝗏's help as well. Tsuyu observed the common area and noted that it felt a bit quiet that morning. Jiraiya agreed and wondered where Bakugou and Mineta were. Suddenly, a loud scream echoed from the fourth floor, followed by Bakugou's furious voice. As Bakugou stormed down the stairs, he demanded to know who had pranked him by covering his door frame with plastic wrap. He expressed his frustration with small explosions, but no one dared to answer, either out of ignorance or a longing to avoid ruining their morning. Then, Midoriya, unable to contain himself, burst into laughter, surprising everyone as they had never heard him laugh before. His laughter was infectious, and soon his children joined in, with Toshi and Oi laughing along, Yori giggling to herself, and Nana smiling. Inko soon joined the laughter, followed by Ochako and Hatsume, until the entire room was filled with joy, except for Todoroki, who wore a small smile. Kaminari remarked on how surprising it was that someone had managed to prank Bakugou, while Shiro leaned against him, commenting on the classic nature of the trick. Toru wished he could have captured the moment in a picture. Ochako, calming down from her laughter, watched Izuku and felt a warm smile spread across her face, realizing how cute he looked when he laughed. Bakugou, still upset about not getting an answer, found himself surrounded by laughter instead. Kirishima urged him to calm down and enjoy the delicious breakfast prepared by Midoriya's mother and 𝗧𝗏. As Bakugou sat down, he noticed the blonde Deku brat looking at him with a smug expression. Meanwhile, in the first-floor hallway, Mineta crawled slowly toward the stairwell, completely wrapped in plastic wrap, tears streaming down his face as he wondered what he had done to deserve this. After breakfast, everyone helped clean up the dishes before returning to their rooms to get ready for the day. Soon, they gathered downstairs, and 𝗧𝗏 announced that it was time to go, as they had a big day ahead. Kaminari expressed his excitement for hero class, sharing that he had been brainstorming ideas for a new super move. Jiraiya playfully warned him not to overdo it. Midoriya waved goodbye to the kids, while Ochako reminded Toshi to be good. Hatsume told Aoi she could stop by the studio, and Aoi assured her she would be there later. 𝗧𝗏 felt a sense of dread at the thought of Power Loader's reaction. Elsewhere in the teacher's dorm, Power Loader was organizing papers when he felt a chill run down his spine, wondering if he could get a substitute for the day. Aizawa passed by and recognized the look of concern on Power Loader's face, commenting on it as he headed to his class. Back at dorm 1A, Inko announced that she would be getting ready for the day, and Yori waved goodbye. Nana gathered her siblings and confirmed that they remembered the plan they had discussed the night before. Nana stood in front of a chartboard filled with pictures and red strings, explaining that they had a rare opportunity to change the course of events and prevent incidents. She dubbed the plan Operation Time Fixed. Toshi questioned the title, suggesting it was too obvious, while Nana challenged him to come up with something better. Aoi intervened, pointing out that they were upsetting Yori, who was happily playing with a stuffed fish plush. She looked up as she faced them, then turned her attention to her toy, throwing her fish across the room before running to pounce on it. Nana redirected everyone's focus back to the board, stating that their first plan was to retrieve Himiko Toga, Yori's mother, from the provisional license exam. This was their only opportunity to get close to her. Nana emphasized the importance of their next mission, which involved the Shy Hasaikai raid. They needed to prevent the loss of Mirio's quirk, Nitai's death, and secure the quirk erasing bullets. Toshi inquired about their next steps. Nana explained that Principal Nedzu should have already informed Aizawa about Yori's mother, so all they needed to do was meet with Aizawa privately to inform him that Togo would be appearing at the license exam. She then handed Aoi a list, which contained various items needed for their plan, including a drone with a camera and retrieval system, 3 tracking devices, and a pad to link the devices together. Nana asked Aoi if she could complete these tasks in the support studio. Aoi proudly declared her capabilities, recalling how she had once turned their lawnmower into a plane. Toshi then asked what he could do. Nana requested that he assist their father with training, as he was at a point where he would soon gain multiple new quirks. She wanted Toshi to help him get accustomed to air combat. Toshi acknowledged her request with a thumbs up. Yori, covering her mouth to suppress her cat-like dialect, asked what her role would be. Nana encouraged her to be herself and to focus on gaining some control, as she was still too young to be involved in such matters. Yori felt a pang of sadness at being unable to help her siblings, crossing her arms with an adorable pout. Nana concluded that they needed to keep their plan a secret, asking if there were any questions. Aoi raised a concern about informing their parents. Nana agreed they could share some information but not too much. Toshi then brought up Eri, questioning whether their father would recognize her as his adoptive oldest daughter. Nana pondered this, considering their father's strong intuition and protective instincts. As she paced the room, she muttered about how their father would likely see Eri as a scared little girl in need of help. Aoi turned to Toshi, asking what his plan would be if their father did take Eri early. Toshi pulled out a piece of paper and pencil, explaining that Overhaul might attempt to steal Eri away, and they needed to plan around that possibility. Yori, overwhelmed by the complexity of the plans, held her head in confusion and eventually fainted. Nana, realizing they had made significant progress, picked Yori up and placed her on her bed with her fish plush. She declared that the planning session had gone well and it was time for bed. Toshi and Aoi were surprised to see Nana fall asleep so quickly. In the present time, Toshi confirmed they would start their plan later that day, and the siblings excitedly agreed to be spoiled by their grandmother. Nana wondered if she could pull off a few pranks around her dormitory as ideas flooded her mind. The exams were finally over, and the kids had a plan. Melissa Shield stepped off her flight from Island, dressed in a red blouse and khaki briefs, carrying a backpack. She made her way to the luggage area to collect her 2 suitcases, one filled with her notes and blueprints, and the other with her clothes and toiletries. She felt relieved that the academy allowed her to keep her lab research, which she had spent months developing. However, a frown crossed her face as she realized she was no longer on island with her friends and was now out in the world on her own. She shook her head to dispel those thoughts, reminding herself that she wouldn't be alone for long. Soon, she would be with Uncle Might, Deku, and her other friends as she approached the entrance of the airport. As Melissa rode down the escalator leading to the entrance, she spotted a sign with her name on it. The person holding the sign was quite short and had a tail. As she approached, she realized he was an animal in a business suit with a scar across his eye. She introduced herself, stating that she was Melissa Shield and asked for his name. The animal responded with a playful tone, saying he was unsure if he was a bear, a mouse, or a cat, but that he was Nedzu, the principal of UA. He set the sign aside and confirmed that he was there to pick her up, and they walked toward the exit together. Nedzu explained that he was also there to inform her about her situation at UA, mentioning that while it might not have the top-of-the-line equipment like Island, it was still better than any ordinary hero school. He continued, saying she would be attending classes in the support course and staying in dormitory 1A with her friends. Melissa smiled but then looked curious, wondering why she would be in the same dorm as Deku and the others, since she thought she would be with the other kids in the support department. Nedzu hinted that there was a surprise waiting for her. Before she could ask about the surprise, she realized she didn't know how they would be getting to UA. She inquired whether they would be taking a limo or a taxi. Nedzu chuckled and revealed that they would be taking his car. He pulled out his car keys and signaled for it. Melissa was astonished to see a white 2020 Bugatti Divo with the license plate, Plus Ultra. She expressed her excitement as they approached the car. 𝗫𝗠 encouraged her to get in, and as she was placing her bags in the trunk, an airport security guard approached them. The guard inquired if 𝗫𝗠 was the owner of the vehicle, to which 𝗫𝗠 confirmed and asked what the problem was. The guard informed him that he was parked in a red zone and would have to issue a ticket if he didn't move. 𝗫𝗠 asked Melissa to get in the car while he spoke with the guard. He explained that he had a special license allowing him to park anywhere at any time. The guard requested to see this license, and 𝗫𝗠 handed him a piece of paper. The guard, upon reading it, expressed his frustration as it simply stated that 𝗫𝗠 could do what he wanted. 𝗫𝗠 bid him goodbye and started the car. As the engine roared to life, he told Melissa to buckle up, assuring her they would reach UA before the hero class started. With a burst of speed, they were off, and 𝗫𝗠 welcomed her to Japan as they hit the highway. At UA, the entire Class 1A was in their homeroom during a free party. Aizawa was napping in the front corner of the class, wrapped in his sleeping bag. Some students were discussing their super moves, while others used the time to catch up on homework. The Deku squad gathered around Ida, Uraraka, and Tsuyu's desks. Uraraka remarked that she had never heard Deku laugh before, expressing that he had a cute laugh, which made him blush slightly. Midoriya explained that he hadn't laughed much, especially during the time with Todoroki and Ida. Tsuyu found it hard to believe that Todoroki could be funny, to which Todoroki replied that he wasn't trying to be funny, he was merely stating that every time he got involved, someone ended up getting hurt. Uraraka pressed him about his past, asking if he had friends who made him laugh. Midoriya's expression turned somber as he admitted he didn't really have any friends. Ida recalled what Inko had told him about Midoriya's lack of friends in middle school and reassured him that they were there for him if he ever wanted to talk. Kaminari approached, asking Midoriya for advice on his quirk. As the girls focused on their conversation with Kaminari, Todoroki leaned toward Ida, inquiring about what he had discussed with Midoriya's mother. Ida revealed that she had told him Midoriya didn't have any friends. When Todoroki asked about Bakugou, Ida confirmed that Inko had said Bakugou was never truly a friend to Midoriya. Todoroki pondered this revelation, wondering what secrets Midoriya might be hiding. Meanwhile, in the 1A dorm, Inko and her grandchildren enjoyed a sunny day outside. Toshi and Yori played with a soccer ball, while Aoi showed Inko her notebook filled with cool gadgets. Nana remained inside the dormitory, busy with her own activities. Aoi excitedly explained that one of her gadgets could stop an entire rock slide, showing Inko a picture of a net. That's really amazing. What does this one do? Aoi pointed to a picture of a tiny robot. She explained that it was something she was working on, calling it the Tiny Hero. It was a little robot designed to help with collapsed buildings and rock slides, capable of getting into tiny cracks to check for anyone trapped underneath. Inko praised her, saying it sounded perfect for rescue heroes, while Aoi twiddled with her hair in embarrassment. Inko then noticed someone was missing and asked where Nana was, but Aoi shrugged in response. Outside Bakugou's room, Nana stood with a duffel bag, staring at the door as memories from her childhood flooded back. For years ago, Nana often had pleasant dreams of her family spending time together. Some dreams featured Nana Shimura, one of the users of One for All, sharing stories of her hero days. However, that night she found herself in a nightmare. She was in an unfamiliar park, standing in front of a green-haired boy who was with a kid who looked hurt. Nana recognized her father, who was crying. A younger Midoriya pleaded with Bakugou to stop, saying that the boy was hurt and that he would never forgive him if he continued. Nana was confused, wondering why Bakugou was acting this way. The younger Bakugou, with small explosions in his hands, taunted Midoriya, suggesting they would show what happened to quirkless people. They charged at her father, and Nana screamed for them to stop, but her voice went unheard as she tried to intervene, only to pass through them. The scene shifted to a classroom where she saw older versions of her father and Bakugou. The older Bakugou cruelly suggested that the only way to become a hero was to pray for a quirk in the afterlife and jump off the roof, laughing at her father, who looked down in despair. The dream darkened as Bakugou vanished, leaving Nana and her father alone. Midoriya, feeling hopeless, walked toward the window, and Nana cried out, urging him not to listen to Bakugou. She rushed to stop him, but once again she passed through him. As Midoriya climbed onto the windowsill, he apologized to everyone and leaned forward, falling. Nana screamed in horror, waking up in her room, drenched in sweat and tears, surrounded by pictures and posters of heroes. A knock at the door revealed her father, dressed in his sleepwear, who asked if she was okay after hearing her scream. Unable to find the words, she rushed to him, hugging his leg. He gently picked her up and held her close, asking if she wanted to talk about her nightmare. Nana nodded, and he carried her back to her bed, tucking her in. As she recounted her dream, Izuku listened with concern, knowing he would need to address the memories she had seen later. When Nana asked why Bakugou had been so mean, Izuku explained that Bakugou had received his quirk before everyone else, leaving him feeling superior. He admitted that Bakugou had been a 𝗓𝗪𝐾, believing heroes should always triumph over villains. Nana disagreed, asserting that a hero is someone who protects others and gives them hope. Izuku chuckled, impressed by her definition, and noted that it was the first time he had seen her cry. He reassured her, recalling how she had never cried as a baby, just observing the world around her. He turned to leave. Nana called out to him, expressing her belief that he could still be a hero without a quirk. He smiled at her words and closed the door, leaving her to drift back to sleep peacefully. In the present, Nana took a deep breath and walked away, determined to focus on her responsibilities. She entered the elevator, pressing the button for the first floor. Upon arriving, she headed to the back area where her grandmother and siblings were. Inko spotted Nana and asked what had taken her so long. Nana explained that she was making sure their room was clean, as her siblings often forgot to tidy up after themselves. 𝗬𝗓𝗏 crossed her arms, defending herself, claiming it wasn't always her fault. Meanwhile, Yori excitedly juggled a soccer ball, eager to show off her skills. Inko expressed her admiration while watching Yori pick up speed. Yori continued to juggle the ball at an impressive pace. Toshi sniffed the air and remarked that something smelled burning. 𝗬𝗏 confirmed that it had a rubbery scent. Nana suggested they all take cover, pointing back at Yori, who was too focused on the ball to notice the dark smoke rising from it. As they stepped back cautiously, Yori felt her quirk flaring up, her voice taking on a more aggressive tone. She declared that she just needed a little more time, and soon the ball was engulfed in flames. With a powerful kick, she sent the fiery ball crashing into a tree, which fell with a loud crash. Everyone stared in awe, realizing Yori might have just invented a new move. Excitedly, Yori rushed to grab another ball, still buzzing from her accomplishment. Inko shook off her shock at the sight of the tree's destruction and reminded Yori to turn off her quirk before heading inside to avoid any potential fire hazards. Yori, feeling a bit ashamed, nodded in agreement. Toshi, 𝗬𝗏, and Nana exchanged glances. Toshi commented on Yori's new move as he went inside to fetch a bucket of water to extinguish the fire. 𝗬𝗏 wondered if their dad would be impressed, while Nana noted that Yori would need to work on her aim before perfecting her new technique. She also mentioned asking Momo for a flameproof ball later, eyeing the now ruined ball. Toshi returned with a floating bucket of water and doused the flames. Yori and Inko emerged with a brand new ball. Inko reminded Yori to be cautious with her quirk indoors to prevent any accidents. Yori, ears flattened and tail drooping, promised to be more careful. Inko encouraged her, highlighting her impressive new move, which brought a smile back to Yori's face. Yori couldn't wait to show her dad her new technique and pondered what to call it. 𝗬𝗏, brushing her hair, asked for the name. After a moment of thought, Yori's ears perked up in excitement as she announced, Prio Ball, her flames flaring slightly larger. Melissa had just arrived and was about to meet her daughter, hoping she would survive the drive with Nezu, known for his reckless speed. There was also a glimpse into Nana's backstory, explaining her determination to pursue Bakugou. Yori had created a new move on her own, and everyone hoped she wouldn't cause any more chaos. The next chapter would follow soon, focusing on the afternoon at 1A dorm. Yori eagerly tugged at Inko's shirt, asking to visit her dad and show him her new move. Inko hesitated, concerned about the ongoing hero class and the potential dangers involved. Nana reassured Inko that the teachers would be present to ensure safety, while Toshi and 𝗬𝗏 expressed their willingness to join. After considering her options and with Yori persistently tugging at her sleeve, Inko finally agreed, reminding them to listen to the teachers and avoid causing too much trouble. Excitedly, Toshi and Yori rushed upstairs, while Inko settled on the couch, hoping they wouldn't create too much chaos. A few minutes later, the kids returned in their UA school uniforms, feeling proud of their appearance. Yori struggled with her tie, prompting Nana to help her adjust it comfortably. Inko asked Nana how she learned to fix ties, and Nana explained that it was a skill she picked up while helping her father. Inko suggested taking a group photo before they left, and the kids posed together as she set the camera on a timer. Yori stood at the front, flanked by Nana and Aoi, while Toshi stood tall in the back, and Inko positioned herself beside Nana. After capturing the moment, Inko admired the photo and led the kids out of the dorm toward the main building. As they walked, other students noticed them, speculating about their presence and commenting on Yori's adorable appearance in her uniform. Yori stayed close to Inko for comfort, prompting Inko to pull her closer, acknowledging her shyness. Yori nodded in response as she nuzzled her head close to Inko. Aoi explained that Yori was a bit shy and nervous when receiving a lot of attention, especially in public or around new people. Inko recalled how Izuku had been the same way when he was younger. She suggested they head inside first, stopping by the support studio before going to the training area. When she asked where the two areas were, Nana confidently stated that she remembered the entire campus map and led them inside, unaware of a student with long light blue hair watching them with curious eyes. Meanwhile, with Nedzu and Melissa, she screamed as she clung on for dear life while Nedzu sped along. She pleaded for him to slow down, but he simply laughed, enjoying the thrill. He remarked that this was the most fun he had experienced since being an opponent for Kaminari and Ishido, all while managing to drink tea without spilling a drop. Melissa silently hoped to survive the ride. Back with Inko and the kids, Power Loader stood in the doorway of his studio, facing the Midoriya children and Inko, with Hatsume behind him. He firmly stated that he couldn't allow Aoi in, despite Hatsume's pleas. Power Loader explained that he was already overwhelmed with one Hatsume and didn't want to deal with another potential disaster. Hatsume continued to beg, promising to keep an eye on Aoi. Nana interjected, explaining that Aoi was different from her mother, more mellow and less prone to causing explosions, though her inventions sometimes had a tendency to short-circuit. Aoi, feeling embarrassed, looked away as Toshi reminded her of an incident where she had added a jetpack to his RC car, which had ended up in the next city. Aoi muttered that at least she had fixed it. Power Loader sighed and reluctantly agreed to let Aoi in, but warned that he would keep a close watch on them. Both Hatsume expressed their excitement, and he instructed them to avoid going overboard with their projects. Aoi saluted him, promising to keep him informed about her work. As Power Loader stepped aside to let them in, he muttered that he would need a break after this. Inko encouraged the kids to visit the class as they walked down the hallway. In Gym Gamma, there was a flurry of activity as everyone practiced their super moves. Todoroki was honing his ability to use both sides of his quirk simultaneously, Zero was working on new trap techniques with his tape, and Ishido was trying to extend the range of her acid. Midoriya was deep in thought, contemplating how to advance his quirk, when All Might approached him, reminding him that he was still trying to imitate him. Aizawa noticed the Midoriya family entering the gym and greeted them. Toshi waved back and asked what they were doing there. Inko explained that Yori wanted to show Izuku a new move she had come up with, while the other two wanted to see if they could help. Aizawa pointed out that the gym was not a safe place for small children, but Inko insisted that Yori was determined to show Izuku her move. Yori spotted Izuku amidst the chaos and, filled with excitement, activated her quirk as she ran toward him, leaving a trail behind her. Inko called out for her to come back, worried for her safety. Nana reassured Inko and Aizawa that Yori could take care of herself, while the older kids expressed their aspirations to become heroes as well. Aizawa considered allowing them to assist his students, and Inko agreed, noting that Nana seemed to know what she was doing. Toshi asked Nana who she would be helping, and she replied that she would assist Kirishima, noting their similarities. Toshi, floating in the air, mentioned he might help his mom or someone else. Nana advised him to help the others, reminding him that he had a tendency to go overboard with training as he floated away. He acknowledged her with a casual response. At UA campus, Nezu arrived with Melissa, who looked a bit shaken, as if she had just come off a roller coaster. He asked her if she enjoyed the ride, to which she could only nod nervously. He pointed out the dormitory where she would be staying and instructed her to drop off her bags in the common area before they headed to meet All Might. Melissa, still feeling the effects of the journey, exited the car and rushed to a nearby bush. In Gym Gamma, Yori excitedly ran toward Midoriya, who was lost in thought and didn't notice her approach. She jumped and playfully tackled him, causing them both to tumble to the floor. Midoriya, recovering from the fall, looked at Yori in confusion and asked what she was doing there. She eagerly announced that she wanted to show him a new move she had developed. Concerned for her safety, he suggested she save it for after school since it was too dangerous to practice indoors. Yori insisted she was capable and asked if she could demonstrate her move. Midoriya, curious, gave her the go-ahead. Yori cheered with excitement and searched for something small to use, finding a small round piece of rubble. She began to juggle it with her feet, kicking it into the air until it ignited. With a powerful kick, she sent the rubble crashing into another rock, which shattered into pieces. She looked at her father, asking if he thought it was cool. Midoriya, filled with wonder, praised her for the impressive feat. He expressed amazement at how she had learned to set the rock on fire so quickly. Yori shrugged, and Midoriya noticed the flames dancing around her ankles. He asked her to turn off her quirk for a moment, and she complied. Upon examining her ankles, he saw they were covered in a clear substance. He walked over to the intact rock and noticed it was also coated in the same liquid. Midoriya realized he had discovered something important and explained to Yori that her flames were likely fueled by a flammable liquid she secreted, similar to lighter fluid. Yori was thrilled and asked if he could help her practice. Midoriya hesitated, suggesting they ask Ida for assistance since he was more experienced with kicking techniques. Yori followed him, playfully commenting on his peculiarities. Meanwhile, Kirishima was deep in thought as he practiced punches against a wall, trying to understand All Might's advice about being more aggressive in his approach. He recalled his middle school days, feeling inadequate compared to others with flashier quirks. Frustrated, he questioned what he was missing when a loud explosion caught his attention. He turned to see Bakugou practicing his explosions on an ectoplasm clone. Kirishima envied Bakugou's flashy quirk and reflected on his own abilities, feeling lost. Just then, Nana approached him, pointing out that what he was missing was confidence in himself. Kirishima was surprised to hear that he and Midoriya had more in common than he thought. Nana explained that both of them lacked confidence in their abilities, despite having great potential for growth. Kirishima expressed his admiration for Midoriya's determination and flashy quirk, while Nana shared her own aspirations of becoming a hero, despite feeling limited by her quirk. Kirishima compared his hardened quirk to hers, feeling inadequate. Nana, determined to prove a point, drew a line in the dirt and explained a scenario where he would need to protect civilians from a villain, her. She instructed him to push her to the line, emphasizing the stakes. If he failed, the civilians would be in danger. Kirishima, feeling the weight of the challenge, gulped and prepared himself. Nana took a fighting stance, and Kirishima activated his quirk, both of them ready for the test ahead. Ready? Nana asked as Kirishima nodded and charged toward her, preparing to punch. Kirishima aimed his punch, but she dodged and countered with a swift strike to his gut, sending him flying back to hit the wall. He groaned as he slowly got back up, bewildered by the sudden turn of events. Nana approached him and informed him that the civilians had died. Kirishima was taken aback, exclaiming in surprise that she had taken him down with just one punch. Nana revealed that she had only been using 4% of her power, leaving Kirishima in shock. She resumed her fighting stance, urging him to get back up because the civilians needed protection. Her eyes glowed bright blue with determination as she reminded him that it wasn't very manly to give up. Kirishima smiled at her resolve and charged toward her once more. Meanwhile, Toshi was sending a barrage of rocks toward Momo, Uraraka, Siro, Mina, and Satu. Satu, frustrated, punched an incoming rock into pieces, while Mina, using her dance skills to dodge, shouted at Uraraka to control her child. Momo, determined to overcome the challenge, was nearly hit by a rock but was saved by 𝗧𝗏, who pulled her out of harm's way with his tape. 𝗧𝗏 expressed concern that the training might be too intense. Uraraka, feeling overwhelmed, climbed atop a rock pillar and called out to Toshi, demanding that he stop. Toshi paused, dropping the rocks he was controlling, and landed on the ground. He pleaded with Uraraka not to ground him, and everyone sighed in relief as the onslaught ceased. Uraraka floated down to her son, assuring him that she wouldn't ground him but asked him to be more careful. Toshi, with tears in his eyes, nodded in agreement. Uraraka checked on her friends, confirming that they were okay. Satu mentioned feeling a bit sleepy from the aftereffects of his quirk, while Momo complimented Uraraka on her assertiveness. At Gym Gamma, Melissa entered the large building, led by Nezu, who soon left to attend to other matters. She looked around, spotting her friends working hard. She then saw her uncle Might, along with two others, a short, plump woman with green hair tied into a bun and a tall man with long black hair who appeared very tired. Melissa ran toward Uncle Might, who greeted her with a warm hug. They exchanged pleasantries, and she remarked on his new appearance, to which he reassured her that he was fine. Inko approached Melissa, introducing herself as Deku's mother. Melissa noted their resemblance and confirmed that she called her son Deku as well. Shota Aizawa introduced himself, stating that he would be responsible for her while she stayed in the class dorm. Just then, Nana entered, dragging Kirishima's unconscious body. The group stared at her, and Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose, asking what had happened. Nana simply replied that it was progress, and Melissa observed the younger girl, who bore a striking resemblance to her but with green-tipped hair. She introduced herself to Nana, who revealed her identity as the daughter of Izuku Midoriya and Melissa Shield. Melissa was taken aback, processing the information. Nana confirmed her relationship, and Melissa, still in disbelief, turned to Uncle Might, Inko, and Aizawa as she walked toward the door. Just as she reached it, she fainted, prompting All Might to rush to her side, concerned for her well-being. Inko asked if Melissa would be all right, and Nana assured her that it was to be expected as she leaned Kirishima against the wall. Aizawa sighed, realizing that this situation would lead to a significant headache later. With another chapter complete, Melissa had finally arrived at UA and met her daughter, only to faint from the overwhelming experience. Tidbit: Toshi Midoriya and his group of friends are known as the Next Gen 7 and are already on high alert for being pro-heroes, hinting at their impressive lineage. The scene shifted to a tropical island filled with lush palm trees, hanging coconuts, and appealing birds soaring overhead. The ocean sparkled with clarity as gentle waves rolled onto the pristine sandy beach. On the shoreline stood a young woman with long, wavy blonde hair, wearing a sun hat to shield herself from the sun's rays and a peeling long white dress. Her striking blue eyes gazed out at the sea as she watched a dolphin leap from the water, a smile spreading across her face. She sighed contentedly while glancing at the wedding ring on her hand. As she turned around, her husband, Izuku, called for her from their beach house perched atop the hill. Love filled her eyes as she ran to him, and he rushed to meet her. They embraced, gazing into each other's eyes. Melissa encouraged him to say her name, and he happily obliged, repeating it with joy. She felt a surge of happiness as he spun her around in his arms, the moment feeling perfect and timeless. Suddenly, reality intruded. Izuku was gently trying to wake her after she had fainted in the gym and was brought back to their dorm. Everyone was gathered in the common area, anxiously waiting for her to regain consciousness. Ami inquired about what had happened to their mother, and Nana explained that Melissa had fainted after learning the truth about her. Toshi suggested that Nana could have eased her into the revelation. As Melissa stirred and opened her eyes, she took in her surroundings, realizing that everyone she had met at Island was present. Kaminari greeted her from another couch, where Kirishima lay unconscious. Confused, Melissa recalled the last thing she remembered, a child telling her that she was their mother. She looked at the kids at the table, especially the blonde one, who smiled and waved back at her. Frantically, she searched for familiar faces, calling out for Uncle Might, Deku, or anyone who could explain what was happening. Aoi used her hair to extend to the kitchen, retrieving a pitcher of iced tea and a cup for her mother. She urged Melissa to calm down and drink the tea to help soothe her nerves. Accepting the tea, Melissa struggled to keep her composure, asking for an explanation and why the child had called her mom. Izuku placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, suggesting she get comfortable for the explanation. After a thorough explanation, Melissa took a sip of her tea, trying to process the information. The 4 children were from the future, and not only was one of them hers, but all 4 belonged to her and 3 other women. She was interrupted by Ochako, who proudly claimed to be one of those women, joined by Hatsume, who stood beside her with a smile. Melissa continued, confirming that they were all happily married to Izuku. Nana chimed in, noting that despite her father being the #1 hero, he always managed to find time for each of them. Melissa took a deep breath, her mind racing as she expressed her disbelief. She questioned how this was possible, what she would tell her parents, and how Uncle Might could remain so calm. In response, All Might admitted he had never encountered a situation like this before. Ochako reassured Melissa, sharing that she had once been in a similar position but eventually adjusted. Hatsume added that the kids were amazing, especially her own, and shared her notebook filled with ideas for support gadgets. Melissa sighed, feeling overwhelmed. Mina asked about the Uncle Might reference, prompting Melissa to explain her connection to All Might. He clarified that Melissa was not his actual niece but the daughter of his best friend, 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐿, who had been his sidekick in his early years as a hero. The revelation amazed everyone. Toru expressed her excitement about having All Might as an uncle, and 𝗬𝗪 inquired about what he was like. Meanwhile, Todoroki pondered the implications of Midoriya's situation. Mineta, in his usual exuberance, jumped onto Midoriya, shaking him and expressing envy over his good fortune. Nana swiftly intervened, hitting Mineta on the head with a bat, causing him to fall to the ground. She warned him not to bother her father again, while Aoi used her hair to lift him and toss him outside. Yori followed suit, throwing a pillow and blanket after him. Melissa asked if Mineta would be okay, and Toshi reassured her that he was quite durable and would be fine. Kirishima woke up, confused about what had happened. He noticed the blonde girl and recognized her from Island, expressing his delight at seeing her again. Mina caught his attention, asking what had happened to him. He recalled training with Nana and mentioned that he had taken quite a beating, rubbing the back of his head. Curious if he had missed anything, he listened as Mina explained that Melissa had just discovered she had a daughter with the class's sweetheart and that she was also related to All Might, though not directly. Kirishima was amazed by the news but winced in pain as he attempted to get up. He remarked to Nana that she hadn't held back during training. Nana replied that a real villain wouldn't pull their punches and returned to sit with her mother, who seemed tense. Concerned, Nana asked if her mother was all right. Her mother admitted to feeling overwhelmed by the situation and requested someone to show her to her room. Midoriya and Ochako tensed, but Mina, with a mischievous grin, volunteered to help. She grabbed the blonde's wrist and led her to the elevator, ignoring the protests from Deku and Uraraka as the doors closed. They exchanged glances and decided to take the stairs, rushing up the flight. Ida called after them, reminding them not to run. Inko, noticing the commotion, decided to follow, thinking Mina might cause trouble. Meanwhile, Mineta knocked on the sliding doors, pleading to be let back inside as he shivered in the cold. Tsu walked over and closed the blinds, leaving everyone else either in the common area or retreating to their rooms. Hatsume suggested playing Uno, holding up a game controller, but Kaminari admitted he didn't have the game. 𝗬𝗪 was surprised, pointing out that it was free, but Kaminari insisted he hadn't downloaded it. On the top floor, Melissa and Mina stepped out of the elevator. Melissa noticed only 2 doors in the hallway and questioned Mina about it. Mina explained that since Melissa had children with Midoriya, Nezu thought it would be fitting to give them a special room, which included her. Stammering, Melissa expressed her disbelief, feeling it was too soon given everything that had happened. Ochako, out of breath from running up the stairs with Izuku, intervened, telling Mina to stop teasing Melissa, who was already overwhelmed. Mina shrugged, insisting she was just having fun, but was interrupted when someone tugged on her ear. Inko, having caught up, scolded Mina and demanded an apology. Mina complied, and Inko declared that she would take her to her room for the night. Mina pleaded for Midoriya's help, but he smiled and said he wouldn't argue with his mother. As the elevator doors closed, Izuku reassured Melissa that Mina was just playful and meant no harm. Melissa thanked him but expressed her concern about sharing a room with him and Ochako. Izuku mentioned that there was a room available on the first floor for her to use until she felt comfortable. Grateful, Melissa explained that everything was happening too quickly for her. Ochako assured her they would be there if she needed anything. Melissa decided to prepare for bed and entered the elevator, leaving Izuku and Ochako alone. Worried about Melissa, Ochako asked Izuku if he thought she would be alright. He believed she would adjust in time but acknowledged that it would take her a while to get used to the idea of children. Ochako noticed his exhaustion and suggested they turn in for the night, hinting at wanting some time alone together. She felt her face warm at her own words, wondering why she had said that. Melissa tried to correct herself, noting that Hatsume would probably be arriving later. Izuku, blushing, expressed his enthusiasm as they both walked into their room to rest. Downstairs, the common area was filled with tension as an argument erupted. Kaminari shouted that he didn't have the card game, while Shiro insisted that everyone did, as it came free with their console. Kaminari retorted that his console didn't include it, and Hatsume joined in, exclaiming that he did have it. The three continued to argue passionately. Ida intervened, urging them to stop the argument, questioning why it mattered if Kaminari had the game or not. Meanwhile, Todoroki sat on the couch, pondering whether he had the game himself. Mineta, outside, pleaded to come back in as it was cold, but Kaminari dismissed him, returning to his heated debate. Melissa observed the chaos from a distance, noticing the younger children watching the scene unfold. The girl with cat features had her ears covered by the girl with pink dreadlocks, who Melissa assumed was Hatsume's daughter, while the boy with light brown curly hair recorded the commotion on his phone. She quietly made her way to her room, trying not to draw attention, but Nana spotted her. Later that night, Melissa lay on her bed, reflecting on the day's events. She thought about how she had been picked up by a strange creature, traveled across Japan like in an action movie, discovered she had a child with Deku, and found herself in a 𝐒𝐻RM situation. It felt like something out of a cheesy 𝐒𝐻RM anime. Hearing footsteps outside her door, she sat up and noticed a shadow standing there. She called out, asking who was there, but the figure slid something under her door and walked away. Curious, Melissa got up and picked up the object, discovering it was a DVD labeled "Play Me." She took it to her laptop, inserted it, and put on headphones to watch the video. The video showcased Nana fighting against exam robots, and Melissa was amazed by her daughter's skill. Nana moved with precision and speed, as if she had practiced countless times. A sense of pride filled Melissa as she watched, reminding her of a cherished memory from 11 years ago. She recalled her father, David Shield, playfully pretending to be in peril, only to be rescued by a tiny Melissa in an All Might onesie. They laughed together, and even though she had been quirkless, those moments were precious. As she finished the video, Melissa realized tears had formed in her eyes, but she felt a sense of hope. Maybe this situation wouldn't be so bad after all. On the top floor, Mei reluctantly exited the elevator, heading to her room. She couldn't believe Kaminari claimed he didn't have the card game, which was free. Upon entering her room, she found Izuku and Ochako cuddling together, sound asleep. A smile crept across her face as she admired the sight, thinking about how cute they looked together and her excitement for their future. As she changed into her pajamas, her mind raced with ideas for gadgets she could create for them. Crawling into bed, she wrapped her arms around Midoriya, feeling content as she drifted off to sleep. The next day, Power Loader introduced Melissa's shield to his third-year support course students, explaining that she was a transfer student from America. Nervously, she stood at the front of the class, greeting everyone. Earlier that morning, the common area buzzed with activity as everyone enjoyed breakfast prepared by Izuku's mom. Hatsume and Aoi discussed blueprints for various gadgets, while Ochako and Toshi chatted, and Izuku listened in. Yori was having her hair styled by Toru, with a slightly annoyed Mina still upset about being locked in her room the night before. Meanwhile, Nana engaged in a morning chess match with Kaminari, who had decided to challenge her. Ghirou observed the game, noting that Kaminari was losing. She pointed out that challenging Nana, who had a prediction quirk, was akin to challenging Ida to a foot race. As Kaminari contemplated his next move, he realized the odds were not in his favor. He leaned back in his chair, confident of victory, assuring everyone not to worry. Nana smiled softly, encouraging Ghirou that just because someone wasn't good at something didn't mean they couldn't give their best effort. She noticed her mother, Melissa, entering the common area in her school uniform and waved at her while moving her knight on the chessboard without looking. With a triumphant declaration of checkmate, she caught Kaminari off guard, staring at the board in disbelief. He was stunned, trying to comprehend what had just happened, while Ghirou playfully patted his back as she walked away, teasing him about his loss. Feeling frustrated, Kaminari muttered to himself about his missed opportunity. Nana approached her mother, greeting her with a cheerful, "Good morning." Melissa blushed slightly, still adjusting to being called "mother," and confirmed that she had slept well. They joined Inko at a table where she served them a plate of pancakes. Melissa savored a bite, exclaiming how delicious they were, and Inko credited Satu for his help in making them, causing him to rub the back of his head in embarrassment. Just then, Nedzu entered with Power Loader, greeting everyone. The students responded, except for Bakugou, who remained silent. Hatsume waved at Power Loader, who reminded her that it was sensei, to her, his irritation evident. Ida inquired about the reason for their early visit, and Nedzu explained he was there to speak with Melissa. She looked surprised when he confirmed it was indeed her he wanted to talk to. He informed her that she would be joining the support course for 3rd years and, given her situation, she could remain at UA even after graduation to familiarize herself with the city. Melissa felt relieved at the news, grateful she wouldn't be thrown into the world unprepared. Power Loader handed her a schedule, detailing her normal classes during the day and access to the studio in the afternoons, which was open to all years. He also mentioned a secure area for her inventions, warning her not to stay there all night like someone he had in mind, casting a glare at Hatsume. She confidently replied that genius never sleeps, insisting that there was no time for rest when there was inventing to be done. Power Loader groaned, always trying to ensure Hatsume didn't overwork herself. Melissa reassured him that she would keep an eye on her, to which Power Loader gratefully responded. With business concluded, Nedzu looked around the room and noticed someone was missing. He asked where Mineta was, and Ciro informed him that he was outside. Nedzu acknowledged this and left with Power Loader, wishing everyone a good morning. Power Loader instructed Melissa to take a seat next to Yuyu, pointing to a desk beside a girl with short, cropped, reddish hair and reddish-brown eyes. Melissa complied and upon sitting down, noticed Yuyu staring at her. She introduced herself, and Yuyu responded with a warm smile, pleased to meet her. Melissa thought that maybe this new experience wouldn't be so bad after all as she pulled out her notebook and pencil. At lunch, Melissa gathered her meal and found a table to sit at, feeling a bit lonely since she didn't know anyone yet. Soon, she noticed Yuyu approaching with a girl who had light blue eyes and matching long hair that swirled at the ends. Melissa thought she looked adorable. Yuyu greeted her enthusiastically, mentioning she had heard about Melissa from America and bombarding her with questions about her home, her reasons for coming to UA, and whether she had any relatives there. Caught off guard, Melissa was relieved when Yuyu placed a hand on her friend's shoulder, calming her down. Yuyu then asked if they could join her, and Melissa welcomed them, curious about her new friends. Yuyu introduced her best friend, 𝗎𝗎𝗎𝗎, who was in the hero course, and mentioned that she was 𝗎𝗎𝗎's supporter. Melissa, curious about the term, asked for clarification. Before Yuyu could respond, 𝗎𝗎𝗎 explained that Yuyu was her go-to for support gear and other essentials, but Melissa still looked a bit confused. Yuyu took the opportunity to elaborate. She explained that during their 2nd year at UA, some support course students were assigned to hero course students to help design and create support gear, while others who weren't assigned began interning at support companies. She noted that this was a common practice in Japan, unlike what Melissa was used to. Melissa thought carefully about her response, wanting to avoid mentioning I Island for safety reasons. She admitted that her previous school was solely a support course school, so they didn't interact with heroes in training. Although she didn't lie, she felt a bit uneasy, as Island was primarily filled with scientists. 𝗕𝗬𝘀 was fascinated by this revelation and expressed her excitement about a school full of support students. She eagerly asked Melissa more questions, her large smile and sparkling eyes making Melissa feel a bit overwhelmed. 𝗕𝗬𝘀 bombarded Melissa with questions about her life in America, the people there, their quirks, and even the truth behind their hot dogs. 𝑒𝐻𝐻 reassured Melissa that 𝗕𝗬𝘀 was always like this when she found something new to learn about. Their conversation was interrupted when 𝗕𝗬𝘀 spotted two classmates approaching with their lunches. She called out to Mirio and 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻, catching the attention of a blonde boy who reminded her of a character from a comic, and an indigo-haired boy who looked a bit nervous. As they reached the table, Mirio greeted everyone and noticed Melissa, asking if she was new. She introduced herself, extending her hand for a handshake, but was surprised when Mirio's hand phased through hers. Mirio laughed, explaining that he had surprised her with his quirk, permeation. 𝗕𝗬𝘀 chimed in, excitedly sharing details about Mirio's ability and encouraging 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻 to say hello, although he shyly looked down and greeted them quietly. 𝗕𝗬𝘀 reassured Melissa that 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻 was just shy but would open up later. Melissa turned her attention back to Mirio, asking if his quirk allowed him to phase through everything. He confirmed this, explaining that while he could phase through solid objects, he couldn't take in air or see anything while doing so, making it tricky to use. Melissa was amazed and asked about the quirks of 𝗕𝗬𝘀 and 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻. 𝗕𝗬𝘀 explained her quirk, wave motion, which allowed her to convert her vitality into energy that could be discharged as blast waves. 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻, however, seemed uncomfortable with 𝗕𝗬𝘀 sharing details about his quirk and asked her not to tell strangers. 𝗕𝗬𝘀 then turned to Melissa, inquiring about her quirk. Melissa hesitated, dropping her utensils as everyone stared at her. When 𝗬𝗻 asked if something was wrong, Melissa nervously admitted that she didn't have a quirk at all. 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻 was surprised, and 𝗬𝗻 quickly reassured Melissa that they didn't judge anyone. She revealed that her quirk allowed her to change her eye color, demonstrating by shifting through various colors. She noted that while it wasn't particularly useful for being a hero, she remained positive about it. Melissa felt a bit more at ease, realizing she wouldn't be judged for being quirkless. 𝗕𝗬𝘀 then asked Melissa if she had a little sister, having seen a girl who resembled her with some other children and a short green-haired lady. Melissa jumped at the question, denying having any younger siblings while blushing and waving her hands. The group looked at her in confusion, prompting 𝗕𝗬𝘀 to lean closer, still curious. Melissa insisted she truly had no younger siblings, leaning back slightly and feeling a bit flustered. Mirio intervened, suggesting that 𝗕𝗬𝘀 settle down and enjoy her lunch, which made her pout adorably. Everyone chuckled at her expression, and Melissa smiled at her new friends. Later that day, 𝗬𝗻 and Melissa walked through the school until they reached a large reinforced door. 𝗬𝗻 explained that this was the support studio where Melissa would create most of her inventions and gadgets. Just as Melissa was about to open the door, 𝗬𝗻 grabbed her hand, stopping her. 𝗬𝗻 warned Melissa to be cautious, mentioning a first-year student who often caused explosions. As 𝗬𝗻 heard a noise, she instinctively stepped back and pulled Melissa with her. Suddenly, the doors to the lab burst open, releasing a cloud of black smoke. 𝗬𝗻 groaned, realizing Hatsume was at it again. She hoped none of the tools had been damaged and rubbed her temples in frustration. As the smoke cleared, they saw Hatsume on the floor, her eyes swirling. She muttered to herself about the bang she had created. Then, a large, pink, hairy creature emerged from the lab, wrapping around Hatsume and lifting her up. The girls heard shouting from inside the lab. Aoi, visibly upset, scolded Hatsume for connecting a wire she shouldn't have. Power Loader chimed in, expressing disbelief that Hatsume was less responsible than her child. Hatsume, still recovering from the explosion, grinned and defended her actions as a genius inventor. Aoi, determined to keep her mother in check, insisted on putting Hatsume in a timeout. Hatsume protested, reminding Aoi of her role as her creator, but Aoi remained firm, stating it was for Hatsume's own good. Aoi then noticed Melissa and 𝗬𝗻, greeting them with a wave. Melissa returned the gesture with a weak smile, while Yu looked on in confusion. Melissa sensed Yu's intense gaze and felt embarrassed, attempting to explain her situation. After a brief explanation, Yu processed the information, realizing that Melissa had discovered she was part of a HRM with a green-haired boy from the sports festival, and that they had children from the future. As Melissa worked on welding 2 pieces of metal, Yu handed her a wrench, still grappling with the revelation. Yu leaned on the table, asking Hatsume how she felt about the situation. Hatsume, still struggling to free herself from her hair trap, expressed her enjoyment of being with Midoria, whom she admired for his heroism and strength. Aoi introduced herself as one of Midoriya's children, explaining that her siblings were likely helping their father and his classmates with their training. Yu questioned the safety of their activities, but Aoi reassured her that they were well-trained and aware of their future selves' abilities. Melissa, removing her welding goggles, noted Aoi's calm demeanor, to which Yu agreed, acknowledging the uniqueness of meeting someone from the future. They decided to gather more materials, and Melissa headed to the supply closet. Meanwhile, Hatsume pleaded to be let down, but Aoi firmly denied her request. In Class 1A, Nana called out for Kirishima to perform normal consecutive punches, rapidly striking him as he hardened his skin with each blow. Kirishima focused on maintaining his ground, taking a steady step forward before retreating. After a moment, Nana paused to give him a breather, complimenting his progress. Kirishima, breathing heavily, thanked her. Nana reminded him that he still had a long way to go but assured him he would achieve his goals soon. Kirishima smiled, curious about why she was helping him instead of her father. Nana explained that both he and her father struggled with believing in their own abilities, and her father was already on a new path. Kirishima, intrigued, asked for more details, but Nana playfully deflected. She encouraged him to prepare for another round of training, and he eagerly responded, ready for the challenge. Meanwhile, Ochako was practicing her quirk with her son, Toshi, who cheered her on. As she floated in the air, she felt a wave of queasiness and quickly deactivated her quirk. Toshi noted her improvement, and she celebrated breaking her own record. He handed her a water bottle and a nausea relief pill, explaining he always carried them during practice. Ochako, surprised, admitted she couldn't afford such pills but gratefully took them, feeling the queasiness begin to subside. Toshi suggested that Ochako could simply request the items from Recovery Girl, but she looked at him in disbelief. Realizing her oversight, she slapped her forehead and exclaimed how she should have thought of that sooner. Toshi reassured her that she would have figured it out on her own. Ochako's mind wandered as she stared at the water bottle, contemplating her thoughts. Curious, she asked Toshi about his grandparents, her parents. Toshi informed her that they were happily living in Hawaii, just as she had promised them. Excited tears welled in Ochako's eyes as she realized she had achieved her dream. She wondered what would happen next, and Toshi hinted that she had also become a hero for other reasons, wanting her to discover them on her own. With renewed determination, Ochako declared it was time to continue her training, feeling lighter than air as the effects of the pill kicked in. Toshi followed closely behind her as they both got up. Meanwhile, Yori was sitting on the floor with Aizawa, resting her head on his leg while he gently petted her. They watched Midoriya practicing his punches and movements. Yori purred, asking Aizawa what he thought of her father. Aizawa acknowledged that Midoriya was a problem child but was learning from his mistakes. Yori inquired if Aizawa was still upset with Midoriya and the others for their actions at Kamino. Caught off guard, Aizawa asked how she knew about that. Yori explained that her future father had told her because she was a curious kitten. Aizawa admitted he was upset, primarily because they didn't trust the professionals to help rescue Bakugou. Yori defended her father, stating that he couldn't help but assist anyone in need, which was what made him a great hero. She accidentally revealed that Midoriya had been quirkless at first, which piqued Aizawa's interest. He recalled the entrance exam and the first day of school. Aizawa asked Yori to tell him more, but she shook her head, insisting she couldn't. He thought of a way to coax her into speaking, remembering she was part cat and only 7 years old. He proposed a deal. If she shared information, he would reward her with sushi and more head pats. Yori's ears perked up, and her tail wagged as she asked for salmon. Aizawa agreed, and she cheered, eager to share what she knew. He explained that as Midoriya's teacher, it was his job to guide him. Yori thought for a moment and revealed that Midoriya said his quirk manifested on the day of his exam, shocking Aizawa. He realized that Midoriya would have taken the exam quirkless had it not manifested. Curious about Midoriya and Bakugo's relationship, Aizawa offered a big piece of tuna as an incentive. Yori's mouth watered at the thought. She agreed to share but insisted it was a secret, and they made a pinky promise. Yori explained that her father and Bakugo used to be childhood friends, but after Bakugo received his quirk, he changed for the worse. Aizawa, intrigued, asked for more details, but Yori admitted she didn't know much more than that. He thanked her, realizing she might have helped him understand her father better. Yori celebrated her contribution, leaning into Aizawa for more head pats, which made her mew in happiness. Aizawa contemplated the implications of Midoriya being quirkless until the entrance exam and the rocky relationship with Bakugo. He decided he needed to investigate their pasts before they came to UA, suspecting that they had allowed a child and his bully onto the school grounds. In another part of the story, the League of Villains found themselves in a difficult situation. They had lost their hideout and some members, now confined to moving between various secret warehouses owned by All for One. 𝗬𝗲𝗵𝗆 and 𝗬𝐭𝐻𝗫 had gone off on their own, with 𝗬𝐭𝐻𝗫 claiming he needed to fetch something for his emissary, while 𝗬𝗲𝗵𝗆 sought to pursue his own agenda. Frustrated, Himiko Toga, a blonde-haired villain wanted for numerous cases, expressed her annoyance at their current predicament, lamenting how Shigaraki had been locked away in a room since their arrival at the new location. "Don't move so much, dear. I'm almost done," Magna said. She was a transgender woman with big lips and a wide, muscular build. Her smooth, shoulder-length hair was a reddish-magenta color, and her square jaw was lightly covered with facial hair as she styled Himiko's hair into her signature messy buns. Twice, a villain known for his contradictions, knocked on the door behind which Shigaraki was hiding. He expressed his impatience, eager to know the next plan, stating that he actually enjoyed staying there. "And done. What do you think, dearie?" Magna asked as she handed Himiko a cracked mirror. Himiko looked at her reflection and smiled, expressing her love for the new hairstyle and thanking Magna with a warm hug. "Well, what do you all think?" Toga asked her associates. "I love it. I've seen better hairstyles on a dog," Twice remarked, his humor cutting through the moment. Mr. Compress, a villain in a mask and top hat, complimented Himiko, while Spinner, a green lizard man, seemed indifferent as he sat on the moldy. "It's been weeks since those heroes raided us, and look where we are," Spinner grumbled. "For what? Kidnapping a kid so he can join us." "I wouldn't say it was a complete loss. All Might did retire after all," Mr. Compress replied. "Yeah, but he was the only true hero who lived up to Stain's ideals. Now there are just a bunch of fakes out there," Spinner added, still holding on to Stain's ideology. Shigaraki sat quietly in the room, reviewing the intelligence he had gathered about the UA students' locations. His main focus was a picture of Izuku Midoriya. He reflected on their encounters at Hosu, the mall, and the Kamino fight. He recalled how Izuku had yelled at him during the USJ incident, dismissing him as just another All Might fanboy, yet he recognized how both he and Stain had looked up to All Might. "I guess you and I are fated archenemies, but the question is, who will win in the final battle and reshape society to their vision?" He mused as he continued to hear Twice knocking on the door. Shigaraki closed the folder and walked to the door, opening it. You finally came out of your hiding hole. Go back in there, you smell awful," Twice said, allowing Shigaraki to pass into the center of the room. "Judging by your entrance, you have something planned," Mr. Compress observed. "Care to share?" Shigaraki held up a folder, revealing its contents. This folder contains information on the UA licensing exam, detailing where the students will be and what classes will be at each location. "Hold up, you're not seriously thinking about going after an exam area full of hero kids?" Spinner protested, rising as he considered how dangerous and reckless that sounded. "It's too risky of a move." "I don't care, I'll dropkick a child," Twice volunteered, raising his hand. "No, we're not attacking them, but I do want you to retrieve something for me," Shigaraki clarified, handing the folder to Himiko. She opened it to find a picture of the green-haired boy she admired. I want you to go to the exam area 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐴𝐵𝑙𝐷, get a BLD sample, and bring it back here, he instructed. Himiko's eyes sparkled with excitement as she processed the task. Really? She exclaimed, her joy evident. Yes, and after that, I want all of us to lay low for a while, Shigaraki added as he returned to his room, leaving the others staring at the door, except for Himiko, who was bouncing with excitement, clutching the folder. Not only do I get to see my darling Izuku, but I also get to make him bleed as well, she exclaimed, her love-struck expression fixed on the picture of the boy. Aren't you adorable? I remember when I had a high school crush, Magna said, mirroring Himiko's look. What happened to him? Spinner asked. Let's just say he broke my heart, so I broke his, Magna replied, her expression turning serious, leaving Spinner and Compress shocked. Hey, what does that brat have that I don't? I bet it's the freckles, Twice mused, spinning around while hugging the folder. He's perfect, cute, and strong, Himiko said, reminiscing about the sports festival. And not to mention how he looks all banged up. She paused, then added, I just want to make him look pretty. She opened the folder, holding the picture of Izuku, and playfully dragged a small knife across the image, careful not to damage it. Only just a bit, though, she finished. Well, Stain did save the boy, so I can see the qualities in him, Spinner murmured to himself. Just make sure you don't harm the boy, Mr. Compress cautioned. Remember, this is a stealth mission, and you're entering a highly secure area, so be alert, discreet, and disappear without a trace. Himiko nodded, her focus still on Izuku's picture. Don't worry, disappearing is my specialty, she said, her determination clear. Soon, my darling, soon. Later that night in the UA dorms, Izuku asked Melissa how she enjoyed her first day. Everyone was in the common area, doing homework and chatting, except for Bakugou and Mineta. It was great. I already made a couple of friends, she replied, sharing her excitement about visiting the development studio. That's nice, dear, Inko said, assisting a small group of students with their homework, which included Mina, Shoji, Kaminari, Aoyama, and Kirishima. Thanks for helping us, Mrs. Midoriya, Kirishima expressed gratefully. It's not a problem. I may not have a strong quirk, but I'm very book smart, Inko replied, helping Aoyama with a math problem. Must be where Midoriya gets his intelligence from, Todoroki thought as he sat next to Ida. Nana sat beside her mother, reading a book. Melissa looked at her daughter, noticing her long blonde hair with green tips and bright cerulean eyes. She really does look like a mini-me, Melissa thought, also noticing the unusual bracelets on her arms, which were bulkier than normal. Melissa asked Nana if she could take a closer look at one of her bracelet gauntlets. Nana, pleased by the request, removed one of her bracelets and activated it, revealing the full gauntlet's impressive design before handing it to her mother. Melissa admired the craftsmanship and inquired if Nana had designed and built it herself. Nana explained that she had used the base from Melissa's version and that both she and Aoi had worked on it together. Melissa expressed her admiration, noting that her version was intended to help those who needed to hold back their quirks, while Nana's was truly remarkable. Nana thanked her mother, who blushed at the compliment. Hatsume suddenly appeared, eager to share some ideas with Melissa, who felt a bit flustered by Hatsume's sudden closeness. Meanwhile, Izuku watched the scene unfold on the screen, glancing at the gauntlet and then at his scarred hand. He recalled the doctor's warning that excessive use of his quirk could leave his arms unresponsive. Uraraka noticed Izuku's troubled expression and asked if something was wrong, but he reassured her that it was nothing. In the UA office, Aizawa was going through the records of his class late at night, focusing on Bakugou and Midoriya's files. After a conversation with Yori, he felt compelled to review his students' backgrounds. As he compared the records, he noticed discrepancies. Bakugou's file was nearly flawless with perfect grades and no incident reports, while Midoriya's indicated he had been involved in fights, was often rude, and had less than stellar grades. Aizawa found it odd, knowing Midoriya to be one of his brightest students, and the notion of him picking fights seemed out of character. The records confirmed that Midoriya had been quirkless before attending UA. Sighing, 𝐲𝐻𝐿 closed the files and pulled out his cell phone, scrolling through contacts until he found one labeled, Celebrity Buffoon. He called All Might, who answered enthusiastically. 𝐲𝐻𝐿 inquired if All Might had met Midoriya before UA, to which All Might confirmed. 𝐲𝐻𝐿 asked if All Might had ever inquired about Midoriya's school life prior to UA. All Might admitted he hadn't, prompting 𝐲𝐻𝐿 to explain that he was reviewing both Midoriya and Bakugo's records from their previous schools. He suggested that an investigation might be necessary, as he suspected bias from the teachers. All Might agreed to contact his friend, Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲, to look into the matter. As All Might contemplated the conversation, he recalled his first meeting with young Midoriya, who had been a timid fanboy. He remembered Midoriya referring to Bakugo as his friend, despite their apparent falling out. All Might hoped he hadn't misjudged their relationship and decided to reach out to 𝗧𝗵𝗲 for further assistance. Meanwhile, Bakugo entered the kitchen for a glass of water, unaware of Nana's presence until she spoke in a monotone voice. She was seated with a sleeping Yori, whom she was gently petting. Nana asked Bakugo a question, but he reacted irritably, prompting her to remind him to watch his language in front of the child. Nana then confronted Bakugo about his treatment of Midoriya, questioning why he still regarded him as a punching bag despite their father's efforts to mend their relationship. She challenged Bakugo, suggesting he might be afraid of the progress Midoriya had made in controlling his quirk in a short time compared to Bakugo's own experience. Bakugo was taken aback by Nana's words. The idea of being afraid of Midoriya seemed absurd to him. He believed Midoriya should be the one afraid of him. Nana, sensing the tension, decided to take Yori to bed but left Bakugo with a final thought. He should be more concerned about their father, who was a superior hero and person. As the elevator doors closed, Bakugo stared at them, gripping his glass tightly until it shattered in his hand. Angrily, he vowed to prove himself better than Midoriya once he earned his license. Elsewhere, an alarm rang, waking Denki Kaminari from his sleep. He quickly turned it off and checked the time. It was 3 a.m., and he pulled out a hamburger from seemingly nowhere, beginning to eat it. A fun fact about Kaminari was that his favorite food was hamburgers. Another chapter was finished, and he felt proud of making it this far. Toga had claimed Midoriya as her darling, and by anime logic, he was in quite a predicament. They still hadn't explained why they needed Midoriya's BLD. Melissa shared details about her day, while Mama Midoriya helped the kids with their homework. 𝐲𝐻𝐿 was investigating, and All Might have made incorrect assumptions about Bakugo and Midoriya's actual relationship. Could anyone really blame him, though? Izuku probably hadn't shared the whole story. Nana had a little night chat with Bakugo, and where she got the swivel chair was anyone's guess. The question lingered. Would everyone prefer the story to end after the Shy Hasaikai raid arc or the cultural festival arc? Tidbit number 4. Yori Midoriya was raised by her father and 4 mothers, and she was also trained by the family cat, Luna, to hone her instincts. Her family believed she could actually understand and communicate with the cat. Over the next few weeks, things were going well. Melissa was adjusting to her new school. May was causing fewer explosions in the studio thanks to Melissa and Aoi keeping her in check. Kirishima was getting closer to pushing Nana past her limits, and Izuku had started doing night training with his kids in the backyard. Ochako, May, and Melissa were on the top floor of the dormitory. It took a while for Melissa to start sharing a room with them, but her curiosity led her to hang out with them more, eventually moving in. They were all on the bed in their pajamas, enjoying snacks that Ochako had stashed away. Melissa asked the two if they were really calm knowing they were a family with Deku and had kids with him. Ochako admitted she had freaked out when she found out, while Hatsume expressed her joy at having a real baby. Melissa was surprised by Hatsume's enthusiasm, who explained that anyone would be happy to have a baby with Izuku because he was such a great guy. Hatsume mentioned that he liked her babies and wasn't upset about her changing his costume. Ochako reminisced about Deku's original costume, which Hatsume described as a lighter green version with white lines and a mask adorned with cute bunny ears. Melissa wished she could have seen it. Hatsume explained that she wanted to do something nice for him since his costume had been damaged during a battle. Uraraka grumbled about Bakugo being the cause of the damage. Hatsume teased her about not liking the new costume, which made Uraraka blush as she recalled how it hugged him perfectly. Melissa also blushed, noting how buff Deku had become, especially after seeing him fight 𝗲𝗲. Trying to change the topic, Melissa asked 𝗲𝗏𝗀 what Deku was like when she first met him. 𝗲𝗏𝗀 described him as shy and stuttering, a nervous All Might fanboy. Melissa had guessed as much, knowing he looked up to All Might. 𝗲𝗏𝗀 pulled out her flip phone to show them a picture of Deku's room, which was filled with All Might merchandise. Melissa and Hatsume were amazed, and Hatsume noted how rare it was for someone to have a limited edition action figure. 𝗲𝗏𝗀 teased Melissa about being jealous, but Melissa defended herself, explaining that All Might was her favorite hero too. She had even tried to ask Uncle Might for a figure, but they had stopped making them. Hatsume commented on how Midoriya seemed to be a fan of all heroes, given the numerous notes he carried in his notebooks. Melissa expressed curiosity about what was in those books, and 𝗲𝗏𝗀, eager to see, asked to take a peek. Hatsume waved the notebook teasingly, and 𝗲𝗏𝗀, despite her annoyance at being called Float Girl, agreed to take a few looks. In the backyard, Yori called out to her father, challenging him to catch her as she leaped on floating rocks that Toshi was manipulating with his quirk. Izuku was training to catch Yori while navigating the obstacles, all while avoiding incoming rocks and 𝐒𝐻𝗫𝐻 as they jumped through the air. As Deku approached Yori, Toshi sent more rocks his way, and additional strands of 𝐒𝐻𝗫𝗄 appeared, adding to the challenge. Nana observed her father and younger sister as they leaped through the air, noting that Deku still wasn't pushing himself. She thought about how he struggled with air combat, needing to slow down to break the rocks, and how he remained in the mindset of not exceeding 5% of his power. Nana called out for Toshi to bring the rocks back down, and Izuku gasped, finding it difficult to keep pace with Yori. Aoi tossed her father his water bottle, and he thanked her between breaths. Nana pointed out that while Izuku maintained a constant speed and managed to catch up to Yori, he still hadn't caught her. Izuku remarked that the challenge wasn't making things any easier for him, while Toshi and 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀 tried to whistle discreetly. Izuku expressed concern that if he exceeded his current limit, he could injure himself again. Nana reminded him that the only percentages he had used for One for All were either 100% or 5%. He nodded in agreement, acknowledging her words. Nana leaned closer to her father, giving him a cold stare as she reiterated the 5% or 100% point. Izuku recalled 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀 doing something similar back on Island and wondered why Nana kept emphasizing those percentages. He hesitated, then realized what she meant. He had been using One for All at 5% because it felt safe, but he understood now that he could gradually increase that percentage through training. He considered that he might already be capable of going slightly higher than 5%, perhaps around 8 or 9%, without fully realizing it. Aoi commented that Nana was being a bit out of line, but Nana insisted that Izuku needed to recognize that he could use his legs more effectively and didn't always have to rely on a constant 5% since his body was growing stronger from consistent training. Toshi whispered to Nana that discussing this around Izuku might give him the answers he needed, but Nana replied that he was somewhat isolated from the world in his current. Once Izuku felt ready, he got into his stance and activated One for All while his children watched. He thought about starting at 5% and gradually increasing it. As he pushed to 6% and then 7%, he felt the strain on his muscles. He decided to try 8%, realizing that this new level made a significant difference. With a smile, he called out to Yori, suggesting they play another game of tag. Yori eagerly accepted and dashed away on all fours. Meanwhile, in another room, the girls were examining the various hero pages in Izuku's journal. Hatsume marveled at the detailed notes, thinking they could inspire new ideas. Melissa pointed out that these pages contained information about their friends' quirks, noting a drawing of Momo and details about her abilities. 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀 observed that they hadn't shared much about their quirks with Deku, making his insights impressive. As they turned the pages, 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀 blushed at a particular entry about herself. She suggested they stop looking since it felt private, but Hatsume insisted on continuing. Mei grinned, teasing 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀 about what Midoriya thought of her. Melissa, curious, urged Mei to read more. Mei began to read aloud, while 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀 tried to hide under the blankets. She described 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀's quirk, zero gravity, explaining how it allowed her to nullify gravity's effects on solid objects by touching them. Melissa asked where the gravity went when it was nullified, and 𝗂𝗧𝗏 admitted she wasn't sure, explaining that exceeding her limits made her feel nauseous. Hatsume suggested that Izuku theorized the gravity might transfer into her body, causing the discomfort. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 peeked out from her hiding spot, intrigued by this new information. Hatsume continued to read, noting that Izuku had written that 𝗂𝗧𝗏's finger pads were cute and praised her noble intentions as a hero to support her family. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 reflected on this, wondering if it was selfish to want to help her family. Melissa reassured her that being a hero for such reasons was admirable, and 𝗂𝗧𝗏 thanked her for the support. May shared that someone had written about how nice 𝗂𝗧𝗏 was, expressing gratitude for saving him before the entrance exam and becoming one of his first real friends in a long time. He appreciated her support during the sports festival when he was a major target, and thanks to her, he could use Deku as a hero name. May read this aloud, watching as 𝗂𝗧𝗏 blushed under the covers. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 thought to herself that she didn't believe she had such an impact on him. Hatsume, noticing her reaction, teased her about how red her face had become. 𝗂𝗧𝗏, feeling defensive, insisted that she wasn't that great. Hatsume then challenged her to see how red she would get when they looked at her page in the notebook. May dismissed the idea, claiming her notes were full of heroes and that she was just a girl in the support course. But when 𝗂𝗧𝗏 found Hatsume's page, the inventor was taken aback. The page featured a picture of her alongside a design of her helmet. The notes described Hatsume as a bit eccentric but praised her inventions, calling them amazing. Hearing Izuku's positive opinion about her made Hatsume blush, especially since most of her classmates found her antics off-putting. It was refreshing to hear such kind words from someone she had only met at the sports festival. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 playfully teased Hatsume about her blushing, which prompted a spirited retort from Hatsume. The two soon found themselves playfully wrestling on the floor. Meanwhile, Melissa watched them, curious about the notebook 𝗂𝗧𝗏 had dropped. She hoped to find her own name inside. Flipping through the pages, she discovered her entry, which surprised her since she considered herself just an inventor. The notes highlighted her as the daughter of the famous scientist 𝗕𝗏𝗂𝐿, noting her kindness and genius despite being quirkless. Melissa felt a wave of emotion as she read about how her inventions had helped save everyone on Island. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized how kind Izuku was. As the playful scuffle continued, Melissa called for them to stop. 𝗂𝗧𝗏, holding May in a playful hold, explained her mini-battle hero persona. After they settled down, Melissa pointed out that there was no page for Deku, despite the numerous entries for others. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 suggested he might be in other books, but Hatsume confirmed he wasn't. Melissa pressed for the location of those other books, and Hatsume hesitantly admitted to peeking into Deku's closet. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 sighed, deciding they would discuss this later. She wondered why Deku, a huge quirk fan, wasn't included in the journals. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 recalled that he had mentioned being a late bloomer with his quirk, which made Melissa ponder if he had been quirkless like her. Hatsume then proposed they create a page for Deku, which 𝗂𝗧𝗏 thought was a great idea. They decided to collaborate, with Hatsume sketching and Melissa and 𝗂𝗧𝗏 writing notes about Deku's quirk. Later that night, Deku finished training with his students, learning to adjust his power incrementally. Upon entering his room, he found 𝗂𝗧𝗏, Melissa, and May asleep on the bed with one of his hero journals. Realizing Hatsume must have discovered where he kept them, he carefully approached to pick up the notebook and noticed a page dedicated to him. He marveled at the well-done drawing and the notes, touched that they had created a page in his honor. Izuku the Midoria reviewed his notes, which stated his quirk was super strength. He glanced at his wives, who were peacefully sleeping, and contemplated sharing his secret with them. As he examined the other notes they had written, he noticed how they described him as a determined hero who never gave up, smart, strong, and very handsome. A blush crept across his face at the last compliment, but what truly touched his heart was the phrase, "And that's why we love him," accompanied by little drawings of 𝗂𝗧𝗏, Hatsume, and Melissa, all smiling. His eyes began to well up with emotion, but he stifled any sound to avoid waking them. He reflected on all the moments they had shared together and held the notes close to his heart, feeling a mix of happiness and sadness. He thought about keeping his quirk a secret from them and resolved to tell them after the exam. After carefully putting his book away in the closet, he headed to take a shower. Before entering the bathroom, he cast one last glance at his wives, feeling grateful for the joy their children brought into their lives. As he moved on from his thoughts, he recalled recent discussions on social media about who was Izuku's first friend. Many claimed it was Bakugou, noting that he hadn't physically harmed Izuku throughout their lives, as they had only witnessed it happen twice. However, Izuku believed that while Bakugou may have been a childhood acquaintance, Uraraka was his first true friend, someone who genuinely cared for him. The absence of physical harm didn't negate the fact that Izuku had often flinched and felt nervous around Bakugou in the beginning. Izuku knew some would accuse him of harboring negative feelings toward Bakugou, and he openly acknowledged his dislike for him. He wished for Bakugou to face the consequences of his actions. If the fandom could express such sentiments about other characters, he felt entitled to his opinions as well. Shifting his focus, he thought about his son, Toshi Midoria, who, like his mother, wore sleeping mittens to prevent any accidental floating while he slept. Thanks to a friend on Tumblr, where they met in an Izuoka stans group chat, the author found someone really cool and fun to chat with. This friend also had other drawings of different original characters that were impressive. Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲 had just arrived at 𝗓𝗪 Middle School, the site of an investigation requested by his colleague 𝗓𝗪𝗏, involving Midoria and a student named Bakugou. As he stepped out of his car, he surveyed the rundown school and thought that perhaps it looked better on the inside. Upon entering, he was greeted by a dismal scene: lockers covered in graffiti, walls marred by holes of various sizes, and students behaving rudely and disorderly. Some were even using their quirks in the halls. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 wondered what kind of school this was as he made his way to the principal's office and knocked on the door. The principal invited him in, and 𝗧𝗵𝗲 entered a room filled with various pictures and trinkets. The principal greeted him with a calm expression, asking what brought him to the school. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 explained that he was investigating two students who had previously attended 𝗓𝗪. He pulled out two photos, which the principal recognized, though he maintained his calm demeanor. The detective inquired about the issue at hand. He revealed that a teacher at UA had discovered discrepancies in the students' records and wanted to know the reason. The principal sighed and looked out the window, admitting that they had indeed tampered with Bakugou and Midoriya's records. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 noted the principal's honesty but questioned the motive behind it. The principal explained that the school was in disrepair, and prior to Bakugou's departure, funding had been diverted to repair the damage caused by his explosive outbursts. Despite attempts to address Bakugou's behavior through counseling and communication with his mother, the situation had become untenable, leading the teachers to give up on him. Once they learned that Bakugou was applying to UA, they hoped that the prestigious school could help him improve. If he became a top hero and the media discovered he had attended 𝗓𝗪, it could potentially boost their funding for repairs. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 then asked about Midoriya's situation. The principal admitted they never expected Midoriya to get into UA due to being quirkless. They had tried to protect him from the dangers of being a hero, believing that allowing other students to bully him would help him realize the risks involved. They feared that if he had been harmed during the entrance exam, the school would be held responsible. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 frowned, asking if Bakugou had participated in the bullying. The principal confirmed that he had, as he and Midoriya had known each other the longest. They thought Bakugou could help convey the harsh reality to Midoriya. The principal expressed surprise at Midoriya's acceptance into the UA hero course, noting that they initially thought it was a mistake. However, after witnessing Midoriya's performance at the sports festival, they realized he had developed a quirk and decided to let the matter go. He lamented that none of their past students had succeeded in getting into UA, and the prospect of two students achieving that would surely increase their funding. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 asked if the principal regretted allowing the bullying of Midoriya. The principal reflected sadly, acknowledging that Midoriya had always been a determined and kind-hearted student, but life had been unfair to him. A heavy silence filled the room. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 concluded that he had gathered what he needed and planned to speak with other teachers. As he turned to leave, the principal called out, asking him to convey his apologies to Midoriya if he saw him again. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 nodded and exited the office. Meanwhile, Midoria stood outside the studio department door, lost in thought as he stared at his glove. He recalled All Might's words from a few weeks prior, urging him to stop trying to copy others. He also reflected on his recent training session with his classmates, where he began to increase his power percentage. Nana's voice echoed in his mind, reminding him that he was still missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Determined to improve, Midoriya considered the possibility of finding a brace to reinforce his arms or asking Melissa for help in creating one. He felt the urgency to elevate his one-for-all percentage and develop an ultimate move, knowing that falling behind was not an option. He continued his thoughts as he didn't notice 3 figures approaching him. Ida asked Uraraka if she had been focusing on making her body float as they headed to the development studio for costume upgrades, accompanied by Nana, who decided to tag along to check on her sister. Uraraka explained that if she could increase her mobility, she could use the martial arts skills she learned from her internship. She mentioned that Toshi and Recovery Girl had been helping her a lot, allowing her to stay in the air much longer now, thanks to the nausea medicine and pressure points she had been focusing on during her visits. Ida shared that he wanted to reduce the drawbacks of his Recipro's ability. Nana remarked on how interesting it was to see their progress before they all became top heroes in her time. Ida then inquired why she had decided to come with them to the development studio. Nana replied that she wanted to check up on her sister, but she was also monitoring the progress of a project she had asked Aoi to work on. As they walked, Ochako spotted Deku and ran towards him, prompting Ida to remind her not to run in the halls. Izuku noticed her and began to greet her when suddenly, a loud explosion blew the doors open. Ida and Uraraka were horrified, while Nana sighed, having witnessed their green-haired friend being blown away by the blast. The smoke from the room cleared, revealing Melissa, who was wearing a long white lab coat and safety goggles. She called out to Hatsume, expressing concern over her safety and the state of her gadget. Hatsume, brushing herself off, quipped that failure was the mother of invention, referencing Thomas Edison. She lifted herself slightly, realizing she was on top of someone. Melissa commented on how Hatsume had managed to avoid a major explosion for 4 weeks. Izuku groaned, feeling a familiar weight on his chest. He opened his eyes to see Hatsume leaning against him. Although he would have normally felt flustered, he was accustomed to such close encounters. Calming his nerves, he averted his gaze and asked Hatsume how her day had been. Hatsume cheerfully acknowledged him, sitting up on his lap. Uraraka, observing the scene, asked Hatsume if she was not wearing a BR again, noting that Hatsume often forgot to wear one, whether intentionally or not. Hatsume playfully admitted her oversight, saying she needed to let the girls breathe before heading back inside. Uraraka and Ida helped Deku to his feet while Nana approached Melissa to ask if Aoi was with her. Melissa pointed to the back corner where Aoi was dismantling a failed invention next to a pile of various gadgets. As everyone else discussed costume upgrades with Power Loader, Nana went to her sister and inquired about the trackers and dart gun. Aoi proudly presented her completed work, which included 3 small round objects and a dart gun based on her mother's net capture gun, but smaller and more streamlined. Meanwhile, in Gym Gamma, Kirishima encouraged Bakugou to give him all he had as he braced himself against another explosion. Since Nana had given him a day to train, he was testing his resilience against Bakugou, who was frustrated that his ectoplasm clones kept getting destroyed. Bakugou shouted fiercely, unleashing another explosion, but Kirishima stood his ground, realizing that his training with Nana had paid off. Kirishima noted that he wasn't moving an inch when hit, contemplating whether he should get shoes to help him maintain his stance. Bakugou, irritated by Kirishima's confidence, aimed one of his gauntlets at him, ready to pull the pin. Kirishima grinned, challenging Bakugou to bring it on. Bakugou shouted as he pulled the pin, but instead of a powerful explosion, a stream of bubbles erupted from the gauntlets. Kirishima chuckled at the unexpected sight. Teasingly, he asked Bakugou if one of his ultimate moves was called Bubble Bomb, which only fueled Bakugou's anger. He yelled in frustration, swiping at the floating bubbles, and when he turned his gauntlets upside down, a liquid poured out, revealing it to be dish soap. Furious that someone had tampered with his gear, Bakugou vowed to find out who was responsible and make them pay, storming off to get his gauntlets cleaned and repaired. Aoi held a small tablet and explained that it was the control pad for the trackers. With this device, they would be able to maneuver the trackers easily and see what they saw through the cameras Aoi had attached to them. As she turned on the tablet, the small, round objects began to shake and spread out 8 legs with tiny pincers, resembling tiny crabs. Nana observed and commented on Aoi's choice of design. Aoi proudly introduced her creations as scuttle crabs, noting their speed, durability, and ability to latch onto objects without letting go. She demonstrated by making them crawl up her arm and into her hair, where they soon disappeared from sight. Nana inquired whether the trackers would stay attached to Yori's mother when she removed her disguise. Aoi assured her that she had tested them on a similar substance, so they should hold on well. As Aoi watched her mother help her father into a large suit, she winced at the sight. Nana noticed but chose not to comment. Aoi then asked when they would inform Aizawa and their father about the plan for the exams. Nana replied that she would let them know later, but for now, they needed to focus on helping their father recover quickly. Before Aoi could forget, she went to a file cabinet to retrieve some papers. While she did that, Nana listened to Power Loader explaining to Midoria, Uraraka, and Ida how Hatsume was a brilliant mind and one of his best students. Aoi returned with the papers and showed them to Nana, who looked them over and asked what they were. Aoi smiled and explained that they were warranties and safety guidelines to sign in case the scuttle crabs malfunctioned. Nana sighed but accepted the pen Aoi offered and began signing the papers, mumbling about Aoi's AI creations. Aoi playfully corrected her, referring to them as her Aoi. Everyone in the family knew about Aoi's passion for creating robots, especially AI, which often led to chaotic situations until their parents intervened. Suddenly, they heard Ochako and Izuku shout as Ida was propelled against the ceiling by boosters on his arms. Melissa urged Hatsume to shut them off, but Hatsume, with a manic smile, insisted she was just showcasing her inventions. After some insistence, Hatsume reluctantly pressed a button on her remote, cutting off the boosters and causing Ida to fall face-first to the ground, feeling humiliated. Hatsume noted that her invention still needed more testing as she jotted down notes. Ida quickly got back up, frustrated and gesturing wildly. He expressed his dissatisfaction with the device, reminding her that his quirk was in his legs. Hatsume responded by suggesting he could run on his arms instead. Power Loader scolded Hatsume for not listening to her clients, lightly tapping her on the head. As Hatsume faced the reprimand, Izuku had an epiphany. He excitedly ran to Hatsume, expressing his admiration for her genius, before rushing over to Ida, asking to learn from him. Uraraka approached Hatsume, tapping her shoulder and noticing her startled reaction. Melissa pointed out that Hatsume had frozen after receiving a hug from Midoriya. Hatsume, flustered, tried to downplay it, but Uraraka teased her about being so accustomed to physical contact with Midoriya that she froze when he hugged her. Melissa cooed in response, and Hatsume, still blushing, yelled at them to stop. Meanwhile, Aoi and Nana observed the scene, with Aoi commenting on Midoriya's unexpected embrace of Hatsume. Nana noted that Midoriya was in an excited state and would eventually realize what he had done. She added that now that he discovered he could use his legs, he had taken a significant step in his training. They continued to watch the group, intrigued by the unfolding events. Nana Midoriya was a huge fan of 𝗓𝗏. Even though he had passed away, she still watched and read documentaries about the hero. She had even created a cosplay costume of him, complete with fake replicas of his stamps. 4 days later, All Might entered the gym and greeted Aizawa, asking how things were progressing. Aizawa acknowledged his presence and noted that they were making progress. He observed that All Might seemed to be in good shape. All Might confirmed this, expressing that the gummy Nana had given him weeks ago had worked wonders. He lifted his shirt to reveal that his torso was completely fine, except for a faded scar. He mentioned that he had checked in with Recovery Girl and that his internal organs were back to normal, allowing him to eat whole meals again. He decided that he would likely remain in his current form, using his All Might persona for special occasions, as it was time for people to know the real him. Aizawa nodded as he watched All Might walk off toward the students. In the shadows, Tokoyami commanded Dark Shadow to cover him. Dark Shadow complied, enveloping 𝗕𝗁𝗵𝗲's body as Midnight gave them a thumbs up. Yori looked at them with admiration in her eyes. 𝗕𝗁𝗵𝗲 explained that by covering himself with dark shadow, his strength was enhanced, making him better at close combat, and he called it 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝐵𝑖𝑠𝑠𝑎l Blackbody. Midnight encouraged him to make the name easier to call out. Yori approached them, expressing her excitement about how cool it looked. Dark Shadow uncovered 𝗕𝗁𝗵𝗲 and began to pet her head gently, to which 𝗕𝗁𝗵𝗲 questioned why Dark Shadow was doing so. Dark Shadow replied that Yori was like a kitty, and he continued to pet her. Aizawa observed that some students had solidified their fighting styles while others were developing special moves. They watched as Bakugou demonstrated his skills. He concentrated energy in his hand and unleashed a powerful blast at a concrete wall, proudly announcing his success with a smile. All Might commented on Bakugou's progress, and Aizawa agreed, though they both shared a concerned look. Last week, Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲 had reported back to the teachers in their office. He laid down a report file on the desk, stating that the situation at the school was a mess. All Might inquired about the severity of the issue as Aizawa began to read the report. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 revealed that many teachers had manipulated Midoriya's records and allowed students to bully him, including Bakugou. All Might reacted strongly, slamming his hands on the table in disbelief. Aizawa read the report aloud, expressing his shock at the school's failure to protect Midoriya from both verbal and physical harm. He questioned how the school could continue operating under such circumstances. All Might lamented that he couldn't believe Midoriya hadn't confided in him about this. Aizawa suggested that perhaps All Might had not asked him directly. All Might admitted he had not. Aizawa remarked that whatever Midoriya's reasons were, they were not logical. He then posed the question of what their next steps should be when an air conditioning vent suddenly came loose and fell. Nedzu emerged from the air vent, stating that he would personally shut down the middle school. He emphasized that it was unacceptable to treat any student that way, especially one of his own. He instructed them to keep a closer eye on Midoriya and Bakugou, wanting them to bring the two to him if any issues arose. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 asked why Nedzu had been in the vents, but received no answer. Back in the present, Bakugou shouted a warning as a rock, dislodged from the wall he had blasted, fell toward All Might. Before Aizawa could react, Midoriya leaped into the air. All Might looked at him with a small smile, recalling their first meeting on the roof. Midoriya shouted as he shattered the rock with a powerful kick and landed smoothly. He proudly announced that Hatsume had done a great job on his new look, which he called Costume Gamma. The costume resembled his previous one but featured supportive arm braces, iron saws that acted like cleats, and extra armor. Concerned, Midoriya asked All Might if he was okay after the close call. All Might reassured him, flexing and laughing heartily, declaring that he was all right. Ignoring the joke, Midoriya inquired if it was safe for All Might to do that. It was all right, young Midoriya thought as he felt the effects of the gummy Nana had given him. He felt much better now. All Might called out to Bakugou, apologizing for the scare, but Bakugou merely shot him a look before turning to Deku, warning him to be careful. Kaminari, sporting a new pair of square glasses and a launcher on his arm, praised Midoriya for his impressive move against the rock. Kirishima, with his costume updated to include additional black sleeves, asked if Midoriya was more of a puncher. Midoriya explained that he had been trying out new saws suggested by Hatsume, which he believed would enhance his abilities. He also mentioned that Ida had been helping him improve his fighting style, though he still had work to do before he could claim an ultimate move. All Might reassured him that based on that kick, he was further ahead than he thought and should be ready for the upcoming test. Just then, Melissa and Nana approached, with Melissa jotting down notes. She asked Midoriya how the saws felt, and he responded that they felt great and didn't slow him down at all. Melissa noted that the material was light yet durable, which would make for powerful strikes. Nana noticed Kaminari and Kirishima's new looks and commented on their costume updates. Kirishima pointed out that they weren't the only ones with new gear, indicating the rest of their class. Kaminari excitedly shared details about his new special, claiming it was a significant power boost. However, their conversation was interrupted by Vlad King, the teacher for Class B, who informed them that they were scheduled to use the training room every afternoon. Midoriya was surprised to hear about Class B's presence, while Kaminari expressed disappointment at the timing. Nana narrowed her eyes and walked toward her mother, keeping an eye on the entrance. Vlad King demanded that Aizawa get his students out of the way, to which Aizawa retorted, questioning if they were trying to kick them out early with 10 minutes left. Monoma from Class B mockingly informed them about the licensing exam's low pass rate, suggesting that their entire class might fail. Midoriya recalled how much Monoma disliked their class. Kaminari pointed out Monoma's hero costume, which was simply a tuxedo with 3 watches on his belt. Kendo explained that since Monoma's quirk was to copy, he didn't need anything extravagant. Tokoyami noted that if they were taking the same exam, they would be at odds with each other. Aizawa clarified that their classes would be assigned to different locations to prevent conflicts. Vlad King explained that there would be 2 exam days, in June and September, held in 3 different places, ensuring that students from the same school wouldn't compete in the same location. Monoma felt relieved that he wouldn't have to face Class 1A in the same exam. Just then he spotted Melissa, a tall girl with long blonde hair and glasses, standing with a girl who resembled her. Strutting over, Monoma leaned against the wall and smugly introduced himself, claiming that Class B was superior to Class A. Melissa, confused, asked who he was, and Monoma introduced himself as part of the more superior Class B. He complimented Melissa's name and inquired if the girl with her was her younger sister. Nana introduced herself as the daughter of Izuku Midoriya and Melissa 𝗓𝗓𝐿, which left Monoma momentarily stunned. Recovering, Monoma made a disparaging remark about Midoriya, suggesting he wasn't a real hero and implying he was responsible for the camp attack. Nana, noticing her mother's irritation, calmly addressed Monoma, who responded with a smile, unaware of the trouble he was in. Suddenly, Melissa delivered a swift kick to Monoma, causing him to double over in pain. Nana smirked at his predicament, thinking he was pathetic. Melissa warned him never to speak ill of her husband again, threatening him with exaggerated consequences before leaving with Nana to deliver notes to Hatsume. As they walked away, Monoma groaned on the ground, still holding his injury. Meanwhile, Melissa and Nana returned to the support studio, where Melissa announced their arrival and mentioned she had the notes on the sols. Hatsume was busy hovering around with her hover shoes, ready to hear about their findings. Hatsume asked Melissa how the gadgets were in action as she began to explain. Nana noticed Aoi assisting Power Loader with boxes of various sizes and inquired about their contents as Power Loader set one down. Power Loader explained that the boxes contained gadgets and projects from former students who had graduated and often forgot about their belongings. He mentioned that if no one needed them, he would scrap them. Just then, a box tipped over, spilling what appeared to be a storage pack with small batteries attached. Nana picked it up and examined it, curious about the gadget. Power Loader explained that it was an absorption battery pack designed to absorb energy from energy-emitting quirks, which could then be stored for later use or adjusted for output. As she held the contraption, Nana's mind raced with possibilities. She realized that the smaller batteries likely stored energy on a smaller scale while ensuring the main storage still had power. An idea sparked in her mind. Nana asked Power Loader if she could have the device, to which he agreed, cautioning her that the original creator had struggled to make it work due to energy overloads. Before he could finish, he noticed she had disappeared without a sound, leaving him puzzled. Later that night, the girls gathered in the common room of the dorm. Mina complained about the difficulty of their training, while 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝑒 pointed out that intensive training was meant to be challenging. Yaoyorozu reflected on the upcoming exam, noting that there was only a week left. 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝑒 asked her about her ultimate move, and Yaoyorozu expressed her longing to develop her quirk and improve her endurance. 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝑒 then turned to Tsu, who proudly announced that she had perfected a move that would enhance her frog-like abilities. Inko entered with tea and cookies, and the girls eagerly thanked her as they indulged in the snacks. Inko remarked on how hard they seemed to be working, and Jiraiya confirmed their dedication to preparing for the test. Inko shared a memory of her sisters, who were heroes, capturing the attention of the girls. When Mina asked about them, Inko pulled out her phone to show a picture of herself with her sisters, Fubuki and Tatsumaki, who were international pro heroes. She explained that they traveled the world and rarely stayed in one place. Melissa recalled seeing them at a showcase once, while Uraraka wondered why Deku never mentioned them. Inko explained that international heroes often had to distance themselves from family to protect them from danger. As the girls admired postcards from various countries featuring her sisters, 𝗧𝗓 was outside helping Midoriya with his kicking training. Midoriya demonstrated his kicks, and 𝗧𝗓 praised his quick learning. Midoriya credited 𝗧𝗓 as a great teacher, and 𝗧𝗓 felt a sense of pride in his role. They discussed their readiness for the upcoming test, with 𝗧𝗓 expressing uncertainty about competing against more experienced students. Midoriya's excitement about the test shone through as he looked forward to seeing different quirks in action. 𝗧𝗓 acknowledged Midoriya's passion for quirks, and Midoriya shared how he had always loved them since childhood. 𝗧𝗓 noted how Midoriya had gained control over his abilities, contrasting it with his earlier struggles. Midoriya reflected on his quirk as a blessing, prompting 𝗧𝗓 to appreciate Midoriya's unique perspective. As they wrapped up their break, 𝗧𝗓 encouraged Midoriya to return to training, and Midoriya saluted in agreement, ready to continue their preparations.